hear anything. No sound.
Yeah, Chris, I think you must be on mute. I think there's comments in the chat there. Hello, everybody. Hope you can hear me. Can you hear me, Monica?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. And I can see you perfectly clear as well.
Yeah, I wasn't even ready for this. I just came back from washing windows and kind of in, not really
Hmm,
presentable, but that's okay. Here we are.
brilliant. We might have to kick Chris off the show. It's a technical issue. I don't know if the folks listening in, watching in, can hear us. I mean, if
I'm seeing in the chat that they can hear you and me talking, and Chris, he's just got his lips move. So Eric has his lips moving.
right, okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, thanks for whoever's keeping us up to speed in the chat there. Yeah, I recognise some of the faces or some of the names for sure. Thanks for joining us, folks. Eric's having some serious studio problems. I think he needs to rattle his ironing board a little bit.
I should put in my ear thingies so that there's no danger of feedback, although it doesn't sound like there's feedback, is there?
No, I can't hear anything. To be honest, when I signed in on the studio just before 8 o'clock, I thought it was me having technical issues, but apparently not.
Mm-hmm. No,
No.
we cannot hear you. He's getting stressed now. Can you hear us? Yeah, he can hear us. Huh, too funny. So we can't really talk about him, right? How does this work?
I don't know what this score is, but I don't know if it's worth signing out and signing back in again.
Trying a different browser.
Yeah. I must admit, I would like to entertain folks and crack on with some jokes, but my jokes are absolutely appalling. So,
I'm not very good at that either.
yeah. What is tonight's conversation about anyway, Monica? Any idea?
I actually don't know what Eric had in mind. This was sort of
Yeah.
a short notice thing for me. He was on with Paul English Live the other day that I was on, and so
Mm.
yeah, I'll get you back on. And I thought, yeah, it's about time. I was missing that fantastic laughter, which is so infectious that Eric
All right.
has.
Yeah. Hmm.
I do.
Well, I'm sure he's going to have a good laugh once he gets back established into the hosting his own show.
Indeed. No, we still can't hear you, Eric.
Mm. So, for anyone tuning in, please don't run away. We've got
Somebody's talking about stick insects have sex very carefully in case of fire.
All right.
I don't
I
know
like it.
what's going on there. That's good. Keeping us all entertained in the chat room there. That's Mike Mantis. There's a lot of 4-foot snakes in Eric's world. Oh, I wonder what those snakes are. I'm going to plug this in here.
Oh, I hear something. Try that again.
No.
I think Eric was juggling wires. I think I could hear some audio.
Huh. Somebody asks, is Chris's mic on? No blue light. No blue light. We don't see a blue light. Oh, yeah, there's a blue light. We do. So he can hear us, obviously.
It's a glitch in the matrix, perhaps.
Reboot. That's what I was told the other day when I couldn't get on to, where was I trying to get on? To Teams. And it usually works fine. And then I couldn't get on yesterday and they said reboot. We can't hear you. If we could lip read, that would be great. I'm not so good at lip reading.
I think he's using American Sign Language. Sorry, I only know British Sign Language.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should just fill in for Eric
Yeah.
until he gets himself,
Yeah. What would you like
sorted
to
out.
talk about? Somebody
Well,
says, let's have another round of Happy Days Are Here again.
all right.
What
Well,
would
I
you
was
like?
going to say we should really do it in the style of Mr. Von Essex himself, and welcome to another exciting show. And today's guest, the delightful Monica Schaefer. Yay! I don't know what we're going to talk about, Monica, but I know we'll probably discuss some fart jokes.
There's some what jokes?
Fart jokes.
Yeah, I
It's
did grow
pretty.
up with two brothers.
All right.
So,
It's pretty standard, I think, in the Von Essex repertoire for farty jokes.
no, what's he saying here? English was glitching Thursday, lol. But yeah, it's this not being able to get on the microphone. That's a little bit
Mm,
different of a glitch. But yeah.
yeah.
So, what's going on in your neck of the woods these days?
Well, I, as always, I'm full of busy, so I keep
Mm-hmm.
myself busy. Not deliberately, I must admit. That's why my
Mm-hmm.
hair's falling out because I used to be like Bigfoot, the amount of hair I used to have on my head, but it's all stress falling out with the amount of work I undertake. But at the moment, I've just established two channels on YouTube, or re-established a channel on YouTube, and I'm hoping to get more content out as time goes on. One of them is related to survival, and the
Oh,
other one is um, to discuss occult-based information because I have quite a lot of occult presentations, which I'm hoping to put into some sort of reasonable format to get basically on YouTube to get them
hmm.
out on the public domain.
So
But
occult means hidden, right? Is that
yeah,
correct?
yeah, that's right. And I mean, you probably if you've heard me speak with Eric before on his shows, I quite often throw a lot of occult based information in there. Well, one of the reasons for this, just while you mention, is because the there is a power differential of people in high places who use occult knowledge to their advantage. So for me, as a former soldier, I understand that if we can readdress that balance, then we can stand a better chance of having some success in shaping the world and shaping the future to our advantage.
Okay, so basically revealing what they are trying to hide, is that in a
That's
nutshell?
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, essentially, the more you look at the this what could be classed as the system of the occult, this hidden knowledge relates to essentially everything that we know and perceive in the world around us. I mean, there's two branches to it, a little bit like politics. It's known as bicameral, where there's two sides to it, and one side of the occult information, the hidden information, is the laws of nature. So something that I call that is called natural law. So the physical and spiritual or mental laws that manifest into reality, and also the dynamics of the human psyche. So this is I mean, both of these bicameral products, if you like, are known as the microcosm and the macrocosm. And these are both interlinked, intertwined. So if you can affect one, you affect the other, and vice versa. So essentially, if we understand how our minds are being manipulated, the human psyche, and we can improve upon that and safeguard the human mind from this attack, then we can change and shape the world, the macrocosm, through the laws of nature. As I said, both of these systems are interlinked. One doesn't exist without the other. So if we can improve our mindscape, we can improve the landscape.
Well, it's very interesting. See, right now I'm reading a book about the history of feminism and the occult
Mm,
involvement and all these early suffragettes who we had been taught in our schooling and whatnot, what heroines they were and what, oh, they were so brave and heroic and,
mm,
fought for our freedom and, from the slavery of being wives and mothers and they were so involved in demonic practices and it's very dark. And I mean, I was interested in this because I've been really waking up to how evil and bad this whole feminist movement has been. Bad for all of us.
mm.
And so the history of the suffragettes and the history of feminism is steeped in the dark occult arts, demonic, satanic stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can believe it. I mean, the more you, the more that you reveal this hidden information, where one thing you do find, one common denominator is wherever there's power, there is the control by people using and influencing others using occult-based knowledge. Oh, is that
Eric,
Mr. Von Essex?
we can't hear you. No, what's going on?
All right, I think that was sign language for stuff this for a laugh. I'm away for a cup of tea.
So I wonder if you got rid of all that fancy equipment and just use the microphone on your computer. Like that's what I'm doing. Is it? Is it? Oh, you've got the instructions, the manual instructions for how to use it. No, huh? Mike Mantis says 50% of people who buy tickets to see The Cure actually. Oh, what does he say? Hang on, I gotta read both things here. A little higher and a little closer. Thanks, computer.
Other computer. So you must have two computers. Hopefully
Okay.
this
And
one
okay, so
works.
I'm gonna read some of these messages because actually people in the
Yeah.
chat are active here. I was just reading Mike Mantis 41 message. 50% of people who buy tickets to see The Cure actually end up watching Placebo and they enjoy it just as much. I guess that's a commentary on the placebo effect. That's good.
Yeah, I like that.
Um, Before that, DJB2, feminism equals communism with a bra. Oh, that's a good one. Communism with a bra. I haven't heard that expression. And yeah, feminism was brought to us by the usual small hat folks there, the tribe, and that is 100% communism. It was some rabbi that told us communism equals Judaism and Judaism equals communism, right? So feminism equals communism with a bra. I like that. And then same commenter says there is a mute thing on the window. And then Mark Anthony says, other computer.
Mm.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see if I can scroll back and see if there's other ones here.
I guess this is one of the problems with live recording. I mean, we just for the benefit of people at home who think, "Oh, what a catastrophe is going on here," but I mean, generally I know Eric will, you know, establish the computer system to get up and running before the show starts. I think this is a success.
Ah,
Oh no!
third time not lucky. Sorry.
At least we've got a good guided tour of his office.
I like his office, and then I was just looking at your background there, Steve. A
Oh
lot
yeah.
of books that.
Shall I pick a book out?
Sure. And in the meantime, I'm going to read another comment here. A good starting point for esoteric stuff is Manly P. Hall's The secret teaching of all ages.
What about now?
Yay!
Yay! Talk again.
Right, how's that?
Yay!
I think we've got it now. Right, get out all together now to the other computer. I'm going to turn the little bastard off now. So there we go. So,
oh my goodness!
You little piece of. Hallelujah, we're here at last. So I better turn my lane light on.
Now that you're back, I'm going to just bow out for a minute or two because literally I just came in from some outdoor chores and I'm just going to, it's cooler in the house than outside. I got to get another shirt and get a glass of water and stuff. Okay. So I'll be gone for a couple of minutes, but now that you have...
Okay, righto. I'm sorry about that, folks, but that's life, isn't it? That's life. But at least we've got a nice picture of Jeremy behind me. So there we go. So that's it. So I'll just turn this little sniffling little bastard off. So there it goes. Right, sod off, you beacon computer bastard. Right, sorry about that, folks. It's all been a balls up, but apart from that, it's all right on the night. Now, what I was going to say is, where are we now? Nithing. Do people know what a nithing is?
I don't.
Right,
definitely
a
not.
nithing. Well, I didn't expect many people to know that. And I'm just showing off because I heard it from somebody else, you see. Yeah. And a nithing is Norse Old English, and it was a terrible insult to call someone a nithing. And it really was the ultimate in insults. And what it meant was a coward, a villain, a wretch, but most of all, someone that breaks social or warrior code of honor. That is a nithing. Now, this is why, and also it was aimed at the government, the kings and the queens. To call a king a nithing, that meant he was a traitor or she was a traitor, whatever it is. But now, thank you, everybody. I'm terribly sorry about the balls up at the beginning of the show. Is this computer next to me? So there we go. But first of all, would you like to hear Steve's intro tune?
Oh yeah.
Play. Yeah, right. So whilst we're waiting, waiting for now let's hope it works. So here we go. It's Steve's. Just bear with me. I just got because I've changed everything around now, so I don't quite know what I'm doing. It's Steve's intro tune, and we've got everything going. Here we go, and here it comes now. Is it playing?
It did start, but then it's went off.
Should start any minute now. Started?
Mm-hmm.
I can't hear it. Is it playing?
Mm-hmm.
Today's guest is Survival Steve, speaking about how to survive the coming apocalypse.
Love it.
Right. Has it stopped? It's not continuing playing, is it? It's not gone on a loop. So
no, it's finished.
Right. Now, you've also, Monica, you can see Jeremy behind me. Jeremy, the ironing board. We call him Jeremy, you see, Jeremy Irons. But I was just saying to Steve that I was just explaining what a nithing is. And it was Norse Old English. And to call someone a nithing was a terrible insult. It really was. And what that meant and it was aimed at kings and queens and government. And a Nithing is a coward, a villain, a wretch, a traitor, and someone that breaks the social or warrior code of honor, rather. That's a Nithing. And this is what I call governments, Nithings. Well, I don't think there's such a word as Nithings, they're Nithing. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember many years ago, I saw on our flickering black and white television when I was a kid, because we couldn't afford a colour one, hang on, I'll just talk to my camera a little bit. There we go. Was Gone with the Wind, or as my uncle used to call it, the losing of a shirt tail. But anyway, Gone with the Wind. And there was Red Butler. And they said to him, are you supporting the Confederacy or the Union? And he said, I'm supporting Red Butler. And that really made me think. Because look at wars. Who are you supporting? Look at political parties. Who are you supporting? And it should be the person who thinks for themselves. But I think the big problem we've got is fear. Because Mrs. Miggs, with a pet doggy, thinks, I'm not going to pay my council tax. What support has she got? She's totally alone. And this is why I think we need our own police force. People, tough guys, so that if the government thugs come round to get the money from Mrs. Miggs, she just makes a phone call and a lot of very nice Hell's Angel types turn up and tell the government thugs to politely go away, because they might get a bit upset if they don't. So how do you feel about that? Steve, Monica?
Well, if you're asking me, I mean, I would completely abolish government, completely abolish the military, and completely abolish the police. However, that's not too simple a concept for a lot of people to take on board in one simple step. There's a whole host of understanding needs to go into that. But to be brief on being able to police oneself, well, definitely. I mean, I'll try to keep this quite brief. But at the minute, what the police force have done in practically every country on earth is they've removed the ability of the average, I hate to use the term citizen, but I'm just going to use it anyway, the average citizen to be able to protect oneself. Mm-hmm. This is a fundamental principle in nature, the ability to protect oneself. It's known as the self-defense principle. This, of course, is one of two principles, which is balanced with the non-aggression principle. And people will know that through the concept of the yin and yang symbol, which is the black and white spiral, where the two colors pretty much balance each other out. Why? Because the feminine non-aggression principle is balanced with the masculine self-defense principle. And of course, if the police force have removed that ability, well, what happens is that community, that population then grow and subconsciously lose the ability and the understanding to abide by these principles. And what happens is the power balance, and one of the means of mind control that government and forms of authority use is mind control by removing one's natural thought processes, the ability to exercise conscience. So when we can't exercise conscience, we have to bow and decline to the will of a superior force, that being the government. So yes, I fully agree that we should be able to protect ourselves. And if anyone's familiar with the term voluntarism, then on a voluntary basis, members of the community, even if it's something like, did you say the peace force? Or...
Well, there's a PAACE, peace force, but there is one chap who's a Hell's Angel, and it's sort of person that you would. Well, I don't know about you, Steve. You can look after yourself, but I don't think Monica or I would like to meet them in a dark alley. But I'm sure they're very peaceful and they're gentlemen. You look at them, And they said that if any woman thinks she's about to be raped, or any child thinks they're going to be molested by a nonce,
Mm.
then or attacked by a nonce rather, then to phone a number, and they'll be on the scene immediately. And their sheer presence will put anybody off. They'll just come
Yeah.
along, and that woman feels safe with them. And these fellas are real tough guys, bloody tough guys. Yeah, they've got sort of tattoos over their faces and things like that, but they've got a heart of gold. And
I mean,
this
I'm
is the thing.
totally in support of that. I mean,
I am.
the certainly the average police force in westernized countries and beyond, by the way, because I mean, I've worked in many third world nations where police and army are probably the most corrupt, things available, more corrupt than the gangsters and the hoodlums and the terror networks. The police and the military in some countries are more corrupt. But it's the same in Western places. It's just become a little bit more refined and dignified through the act of legislation. So the UK police, for example, and I mean, I'll speak specifically about the UK, even though this applies to places like Canada and America and the rest of Europe. The police are the biggest bunch of order-following, numpty, cowardly criminals, order-following thugs for a criminal cartel called the government, who are the biggest terrorist group ever established in any period of history in the entire world. The government, the Gover scum, as I call them. And I hate to say it, but anyone in support of the government, in whatever manner, is either seriously deranged, needs a real dose of moral education, or has been hoodwinked to the point of, their minds are mush. As I used to be a government supporter. I used to work for them till I
I think
realised morality.
Now,
I think the third
okay.
category applies to most people that we've been so hoodwinked, deceived by do they call it the fifth column, the media, which is all in the hands of that same group of people we're not allowed to name. But
Jehovah's
yeah,
Witnesses.
government is actually inherently evil at this time in our history. Anyway, it is. And then you're right. The police force is doing the bidding of protecting whatever the government is putting forth on us. I've long been talking about vigilante justice. That's what we need. We need to return to. Basically, doesn't that just mean that we take care of our own affairs?
Look
if there's
after our own people.
a pedophile in our midst, let the men of this community just go after them and do what needs to be done with that pedophile, and you will quickly not have that problem anymore in the community, right? So I was going to say,
and there wouldn't be a paedophile because they'd be too terrified to do anything.
Well, that's you get rid of the problem. Exactly.
So, I mean, my cousin, he married an Italian lady. This was after World War II, and moved to Greece. And he said when he was there in the early 50s, the police didn't have to do anything. If there's a woman that was raped, there'd be a body floating down the river the next day.
Yeah.
The families would know who it was. He said the police didn't have to do anything. He said that and women walked around and it was safe.
It was safe. So this brings
Very
me back
safe.
to what we were talking about just before you were able to get on. Feminism. Because Steve started talking about the occult, and I talked about the book that I'm just reading and the origins of the suffragettes and feminist movement. It's the usual tribe,
yes.
and a lot of dark arts and occultism and whatnot, demonic stuff. But anyway, if we would go back to how the natural order of things, then men would take care of protection of the women folk, and women wouldn't be in competition with men and thinking that they're enslaved by being mothers and wives at home. That's got to be the most free life that I can think of, is to take on that role of motherhood and homemaker. It's a very free role, and yet we've been taught, when I was growing up, that's oppressive, and we're oppressed in that role, and to break out of that role, and that the women's liberation, and that all sounded so wonderful, and my goodness, nothing could be further from the truth. And then you replace the family unit, which is basically the founding, the cornerstone, the founding, the what do you call it, the building block of society, of our our nations, is the family, the nuclear family, and then that's the most important building block of it. So what does that get replaced with then? Is government, and this
Communism.
kind of all ties in together, doesn't it?
It does, and there's little things like, for example, I was always told, my father did this as well, my grandfather did it, and that is when you went out with a lady, you walked on the side of the road to protect the woman. So if I'm walking along with a female, I'll always walk on the side of the road. Hello, where's Monica gone? She's lost her camera. But there we are. That's with the shock, I think, of what I just said. And I think your computer, Monica, has come out in solidarity with my computer. Definitely has. There's a conspiracy going on with computers. They're ganging up on us. They definitely are. But Steve, you're on tomorrow night, and I hope we're going to do a survival one tomorrow night.
Yeah.
But Monica, you're back. I was saying your computer's gone into solidarity with my computer. There's a conspiracy,
Just shutting off the camera icon, muting and shutting off the camera icon, because I had to get up, and I just thought, but it seems to, does it kick me out? Like, that's weird.
No, you're still in. But
I was still here.
Yes, you're still. Well, no, you weren't. You're booted out, and you come back in again. But I was going to say, you got the Union Jack behind you. And you've got it the right way up, because upside down it means SOS, and you've got it the correct way round. There it is. Now that's interesting. The Union Jack you've got there.
Well, I got it quite recently. I was inspired by, first of all, Paul Fromm. He always has it as his backdrop. Paul Fromm. And
Paul Fromm, yes.
I didn't really think too much about it, but then I had another friend, and she's actually an immigrant to Canada since about the early 2000s, like 2005 or 6 or something, and came from Denmark or the Netherlands. I always forget which of those two countries, but they fled Europe because things were going down there, but then came to communist Canada. I didn't realize that till they got here, right? But anyway, she talked at length about the Union Jack, this flag behind me. I don't know if you can see the whole thing. On my screen, it's just narrow.
It is.
Is it wider?
And the top line. No, I can see that, and you got it. And you got it the right way up.
There's a
lot of people have it the wrong way round.
There's a whole bunch of history in that flag that was basically erased with the beautiful maple leaf flag. I mean, I've always thought the maple leaf flag was very, very beautiful compared to most flags. It actually has this beautiful image. However, I've kind of learned a few more things since then, and this history, this flag contains a lot of history, like with that part of it there. You see, can I point at it there? That part of it. There's a lot of history in there. And of course, when they replaced this flag with the maple leaf, they're erasing this history, our European roots, who built, the people who built this nation, who built this country up. That was erased. Kind of replaced it with something a little bit more communistic looking. And so I decided to get one of these flags and put it up behind me, because I thought, that we should
why not
show that history.
Because people always make the mistake of thinking it's a white flag with a red cross. And is it a red cross? I don't know. Hang on, I got that right way around.
A maple leaf, and then there's 2 red stripes on the outside.
Yeah, but the English flag is a dragon. Seriously, and people don't realise that. It's a bit like the Confederate flag that they always show was a battle flag. It wasn't the actual Confederate flag. Same with the English. They always show this sort of, St. George's flag, but actually the real one is a dragon. Not many people know that, you see. So there we go. But really, when you think about it, I mean, it was the Act of Union and things like that. that happened, and there's all things and that. But I did a poll in which I said, are governments made, are they made up of demonic psychopaths? And I'll have a quick look. I'll just go into it now. And well, let's put it this way: the overall majority said yes. Well, isn't that a surprise? The overall majority. I'll just go down, and I also did a poll last week on whether we should
what was the poll on? What was the poll?
Are governments made of demonic psychopaths?
Oh, okay. Can I just make a comment before you go there to your poll?
Certainly.
We're going to be going in another direction here, because I'm just reading in the chat here. DJB2, who has been leaving some great messages, says strong women do not need feminism. Nobody needs feminism. And I have to say there's an implication with that comment that somehow feminism helps women, so that, okay, maybe the weak women need feminism, but the strong women don't. But and I'm sure you don't really mean that, but it implies that, doesn't it? And actually, it's bad for all women, and it's very bad for all men. It's bad for all of us. It's a basic destruction of the family. So I just wanted to comment on that. And then there was another comment.
But why can't women be feminine?
No, feminist.
No, feminine, not feminist.
No, that's
why can't
two
women be? That's
You're-
a different
you're asking-
saying. What I'm saying is, why can't women be feminine, not
Yeah.
feminist? Because there's a big difference in
Oh,
what
yeah,
I'm
that's
saying there.
that's two
And I didn't say
different
feminist.
things.
Women used to be feminine, and this is what men want. And they wanted men to be masculine men, and feminine women. Sorry if it sounded different, but why can't that be? And I mean, what I'm
I
saying.
wear pink when I race motocross. Anyway, but no, you're absolutely right. Like, this whole notion of the feminine and the masculine has been destroyed. I mean, we all know that there's an unbelievably epic war against masculinity. Just think of the term toxic masculinity, which has been inserted into our vocabulary by the usual suspects always. What does that mean? Like, they're just implying that anything masculine is really bad, really toxic. And
male
so-
chauvinist pig. Do you remember that? Always a male chauvinist pig. If
Yeah, that's
open the
right.
door
That's
for
right.
someone.
Another one, exactly. And the feminine has been destroyed. You're absolutely right. Like, women have become butch, and they're supposed to go out in the workforce. And if you're, still feminine and have feminine qualities, and that also includes softness. Oh, that's that's not strong, and we could do anything men can do, and I mean, all these things that were drummed into us. And look what happened. My generation, we had very few children, and a lot of women that get old and say, geez, no children or no grandchildren or whatever, like that's pretty empty. And look, then they gaslight us after they tell us there's too many people on this earth, and we care about the earth and we care about the environment. So in our generation, that was that Paul Ehrlich guy, that the population bomb. And then a couple of decades later, they say, oh, we need workers. We don't have enough workers. Oh, let's bring in some temporary foreign workers. That's what they called it in Canada, temporary foreign workers program.
In this country.
That was the beginning of the opening the floodgates to other races. These cheap labor places that flood our country, basically miscegenate. Then you look at the advertise. I mean, people listening to this show probably have seen all that and understand it and know that, then all the advertisements, all the movies depicting mixed race families, and, oh, there's no such thing as race. It's a social construct. And yet they're constantly telling us how evil the white race is. But I thought you said there's no such thing as race. So that's kind of a, it goes against itself. So anyway,
right, yeah.
I'm ranting on. I don't mean to derail you. You were going to talk about your poll.
Well, the thing is, what they do, I mean, they're enticing poor souls into the country, and you can't blame people saying, I mean, let's face it, if you're in a poor country and you've got no prospects, and someone said, "Oh, look, come over here, we give you money to come to this country," well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
Of
But they
course,
don't realise the poor souls are being used as
of
pawns.
course, they're just,
And this is
you know, the opportunists. I mean, of
bloody
course,
governments as well. Because if
yeah.
if we didn't have government, their homelands would be quite nice. They'd grow up, they'd have a job, and they'd be happy. And
One
they
more
think,
point.
oh,
One more point on all that. Probably, let's say 80 or 90% of the people alive in Africa right now at this moment they owe their lives to us. They exist because of us. We went there and brought sanitation, brought infrastructure, cleaned up the the infrastructure
well,
that enabled them to survive, whereas they used to have a pretty high death rate. They have a very high birth rate because they have a high death rate. And now, we go in and say, "Oh, look at all these poor children dying, or these poor babies are dying, and there's such a high infant mortality. Let's fix that. Let's help them." So then, we help them survive, and they still go on having, 10 children each or whatever. Meanwhile, they tell us we should have less children because of the population bomb. Look at this.
it's
And
bullshit
now,
about that
I mean,
population. We're
what's
not
that?
over. It's bullshit, because the fact of the matter is we're facing extinction because we're not having enough children. That is an
Our
actual
race,
fact.
our
Yes.
race.
But not only that, look at China. They had the one-child policy, and they realised that in the next generation, that they're going to be dead within a couple of generations. There won't be any Chinese people around. And you think there's millions and billions of Chinese. So it's these sort of statisticians and things like that. But about this statistic now, what it said was our governments generally run by demonic psychopaths, and 13% said no, and 87% said yes. I think that sort of
You got a
sums it up.
smart audience. You've got a smart
Well,
audience.
there has been an incredible poll, and it's literally been one vote in it either way all week. Now, we got a politician over here called Andrew Bridgen. I don't know if you ever heard of him at all, but he's supposed to be different from the rest, you see. And people said, "Why don't you bring him on?" Well, my attitude is let's be blunt, I don't want hairy-ass politicians on the show, all right? So, but I thought, well, if the audience want hairy-ass politician on the show, and we'll get an hairy-ass politician.
Oh yeah, did you ask that question too in your poll? And what?
Not exactly in those words, no.
Yeah.
I'm sure Andrew Bridgen, I'm not pointing, that is what I'm saying, Andrew Bridgen, I'm sure he's a very nice man. I've never met him, but he's a bit of a renegade. He's a little bit different from the rest, you see. And it was going, you saw it, Steve, didn't you? The poll was going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, and eventually it was 50-50.
Oh wow.
And I said, okay, we're not going to have him on. And suddenly it went dunk, and it went over to yes. Because the bowler hat farmer is good friends with him, you see. And what I would do, to be fair, I'd give him 10 questions before the show and tell people what these 10 questions are, and ask the people and say, right, mate, answer these bleeding questions, and we'd sit back and wait and see if he answers the questions. I'd have to be neutral, obviously, because that would be wrong, but I'd feel sorry for the poor sod, because you'd have Survival Steve tearing into him. I'm sure you'd be very nice to him, wouldn't you, Steve? I'm sure
I would. I mean,
yes.
ultimately,
you are a gentleman. Seriously, you would be.
Thank you. I mean, ultimately, I would only have to ask him questions that would basically serve him with self-contradictions that even a politician could not answer truthfully if they were being honest with themselves, which very rarely are. But if there were, I mean, for example, if I was to ask Andrew Bridgen or any other politician for that matter, any member of government or any supporter of government, to define the distinction, the simple definition between right and wrong behaviour, and then apply that I mean, and again, I'll quickly answer that. The difference between right and wrong is any action. Right is any action that causes no harm to any other individual. A wrong is any action that does cause harm to any other individual. Therefore, nothing in government, and again, I'd have to break that down very, very simply, just by saying basically, government, the word which means mind control in Latin, gubernare mentis, by its very word association, is about coercion. And in order to coerce people and manipulate and trick and deceive them into following and abiding by their legislation, their acts, statutes, and what they call law, they have to use trickery, deceit, and they also have to impart violence in order to propagate it. So therefore, government, mind control, is based upon deceit and violence. None of these are rightful behaviors. So therefore, government can never be morally right. So therefore, politicians can never be morally right. And no matter what they try to skirt around the question, they will never be able to answer it truthfully because they can't. It's a distinct impossibility.
Well, you can see in the chat, it literally is 50-50. Have you noticed that? Even with that poll, it was shifted backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, all the time. Bridget, now, I'll read both sides of it. Now, this is our transport minister, Fockham transport minister. Bridget is good. He was a truther. He was at a truther gathering I went to, which had Richard Vobes there, and they are good friends. So there's that one. And of course, you go back and it says, Mike Mantis says, they are all self-serving. They're only our mates when they want something. Which is
I mean, that's an interesting point that Paul's written.
it is. It is an interesting point.
Yeah, Bridgen is good. He was at a truther gathering I went to. So, and I'm just being sort of devil's advocate there, just to put a leaning on this understanding. Just because somebody realizes, let's just say, a certain health emergency turns out to be fraudulent, does not then turn them into a good person. It just means that they're an informed person. So, for an example, and again, and it's a little bit, you might think I'm just, being a little bit picky with this, but if a murderer went to a truther conference, for example, or a murderer or a violent criminal in whatever, a burglar, for example, went to a truther conference or realized that the health emergency was a hoax, that doesn't make him a good person. Bridgen, if he's still advocating for politics, he cannot be morally good. It's impossible. Politics and morality does not mix. It's an impossibility to thwart violence and coercion upon other people and call it policy or legislation or law, and then expect to be morally in the right, morally correct, or a good person. So essentially what I'm trying to get from this is we need to really have a deep dive on what we understand by right and wrong. So, for example, and again, he might seem a lovely bloke. He might have a gentle nature. I don't know Andrew Bridgen at all. I don't listen to a single word he says, even though I'm familiar with him from the internet, etc. I don't listen to him at all because he advocates for politics. Politics is violence and coercion. Politics and government is immoral. Therefore, I don't factor it into my life because I don't associate with evil. So he might seem like a pleasant bloke because he's pals with Richard Forbes, etc., etc. But by the fact that he imports violence and coercion or advocates for it can never make him morally good. So it's important that we understand these word structures and do a deep dive on the etymology of our understanding in order for us to grow in consciousness, which is what we need in order to hit that great awakening that's mentioned so often and so readily in truther circles.
Now, so Bridget, sorry, come. Okay, Monica, far away.
I was just going to say, I mean, this is a super interesting discussion, and you know,
Oh, thank you.
like I could learn a lot from you, Steve, and I think you're right about, the government being mind control. I think I've heard that before, but I'd forgotten the etymology of that word. But anyway, I think that some people actually do go into politics with good intentions.
Mhm.
Then when they get there, they quickly find out that they really don't have much to say or to decide in reality. Like
Yeah.
they have to go along with their party, and that there's the whole thing too. The party system is absolutely deadly, and then they a couple of things could happen with them. They will quickly find out that they really can't decide on anything of import, so that they might decide, okay, maybe I can make a difference with this small matter over here, so I'm going to really just make that my project to work on this small
Mhm.
matter over here, and maybe they can make a difference with this small matter, whatever it may be, I don't know, some local matter. And then they just kind of focus all their energy there. The other thing that happens is they, because the party whip forces them to vote a certain way, not all votes are that way, but a lot of votes are party whipped. And they have to compromise on something that doesn't sit right with them. And then as soon as they've made one small compromise, that's it. That cracks the door to further compromise. It,
I mean,
yeah, maybe money, maybe just it's a moral thing, Eric. Like, I remember I had this experience. I used to when I
you
was
were in
still,
politics, weren't you, at one time?
when I was fast asleep. I was still fast asleep. I was still upside down.
We've all been fast asleep. I mean, Steve's
I was.
admitted it. You've
I'll just
admitted it.
tell you.
I've admitted it. I mean, I was a bonehead, you know. I was like,
Well, of course,
one
it would
time.
be stupid to deny that, because I mean, part of the learning is the fact, and part of being able to recognize is that, yeah, I recognize that all the mind control stuff that we've been taught, and the lies and deceptions, of course. I mean, I've never, ever, ever tried to hide the fact that I used to be totally asleep. That would be silly to do that. But the awakening was part of this my life, right? But anyway, I used to be very involved in the Green Party, which is the Communist Party. I call them the
Yeah.
Watermelon Party now because they're green on the outside. Packaging is all nice. Everything they say is all nice. You think, but if you don't understand truly what they're about, but they're totally communist. They're the worst of all the parties. But anyway, Elizabeth May, the leader of the Green Party of Canada, when I I had already sent in a letter of resignation, totally, like, I am no longer part of the Green Party of Canada. I won't get into the details of what the impetus for that was, but then a year later, she's what was it? I can't remember the details, but here's the thing: she was on the phone with me to apologize for a letter that I had written to the. He was not the leader in terms of being a candidate, but in the bureaucratic end of things, he was involved in the Green Party. His name was Paul Ester, and he was Jewish. And he had written some really horrible letter about, this was after the 50-day war on Gaza. This is back in 2015 or something like that, a bunch of years ago. And I wrote a very, very, very strong letter, and I let it go, go public. I copied a bunch of people on it, and they asked if they could publish it on their website.
Let me guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let
So
me
anyway,
guess. Was you
sorry.
accused of being anti-Semolina?
Yeah, I was an anti-Semolina. Anyway, in that letter, I wrote some very, very strong things about, about that certain tribe and how they operate. And I said to Elizabeth May, it was a letter to Elizabeth May. I said, you have to get rid of this guy. He's going to undermine the party. He's trying to destroy it from within. At that time, I was still hopeful that the party, the Green Party, might be something that could be good for the environment and all this stuff, right? I still wasn't fully awake. I was just partially awake, because it just comes a little bit gradually there. And then there was a by-election in my riding, and so I was applying to run again as a Green Party candidate there, and they were stalling me out, and finally Elizabeth May gets on the phone with me, and she's the busiest member of Parliament in the whole House of Commons, so I was amazed. She spent an hour on the phone with me, and she was trying to talk me into apologizing for that letter, apologizing to this dude, Paul Estrin or whatever, and make it go away by apologizing. I said, oh no, that would be the beginning of the end. It would be a compromise of my integrity. And I knew deep down that there's no way I can do that. First of all, I stand by everything that I wrote in that letter. And secondly, I just knew that if I did that, and that's before I even, run in this election, that's it. I'm compromised. If you've already compromised yourself by apologizing for something that you actually stand by, it's different if you apologize for something where you genuinely feel like you made an error. That's of course different. I've apologized many times in my life for errors that I have made, and I have made many, believe me. But anyway, this is for something that I stood by, and she's saying just make the letter go away and then you can run. But they didn't want to accept me as the candidate because the party would be attacked for being, what did you call it, anti-Semolina?
Anti-Semolina, yeah. so there we go. But the trouble is, you see, the problem in the world is the psychopaths. Everywhere you go, these psychopaths, and they get into government. And I actually think that belief in government is like an addiction, like a junkie. I sort of voted, man, and I thought I just had another vote, and I thought it's going to work out all right. And it's brilliant. But no, I was just disappointed. So I voted again for someone else, and it's always the same: hype, disappointment, then another one comes along. Hype, disappointment, down again. So why not we look on it as an addiction? So we've got government junkies, and we feel sorry for these government junkies, a good, decent folk throughout the world who are absolutely pissed off with these governments and government junkies that should get them into power. Couldn't we sort of have some idea of curing a government junkie? These people say, well, I just had voted again. I needed one more fix, because where a junkie needs a fix of a drug, they need an election to sort of, oh yeah, I feel great, marvellous, new government in. Oh no, they're going to pick up more taxes, they're going to do this, going to do that. But if Mr. Politician came on, any politician, the first question I'd ask him is, what are you going to do about usury? I don't think you'd come on with that question.
So, Eric, don't you think also, and Steve, don't you think also that rather than looking at it as an addiction, don't you think that like 99% of people just think that it is part of life, like it's as necessary as food and air and water, because we've grown up with it. There has always been government our whole lives, and then don't you think most people would just think that if there wasn't government, then everything would just fall apart? I mean,
you're exactly right. People do think like that. I mean, essentially simply because, and all the points you've made are correct, because we have all grown up with government. We probably don't really get any form of education to show that there can be any other way. And I mean, I understand other ways, other systems, if you like, but these systems don't promote wealth and power and control for psychopaths, so therefore they get abolished at every instant. And what happens is you end up with a community, a population of people who are culturally and basically subconsciously controlled through the mind in order to reject anything other than the authority of their belief system. And that belief system is not necessarily religion, it's the religion of government, the belief in authority. And I mean, just as one example, people who believe that authority is necessary and that it must continue have actually been duped into believing that human slavery is a necessity and that slavery must continue in order to prevent chaos. This is mind control at its finest. And sadly, you're exactly right. The majority of people in the world actually have that religious, and I'm going to call it a religious disposition, where they believe that this cult, this death cult, is part of the fabric of society that can't be eroded away. I hate to say it, it can, and it can be, but what it needs is we need to fix our internal structure.
You're right. I mean, Mark Antony said, It's easiest to speak out once the horse has bolted, which is what Bridgen and the other clown, Dr. Campbell, on YouTube has done. Don't trust these frauds. Oh, Dr. Campbell, I mean, I don't know if you've seen him. I mean, you feel like committing suicide after seeing him, doom and gloom he is. But yes, I mean, my view would be I mean, I don't think he'd have an easy time on this show somehow. I still be polite to him.
Yeah.
But I think that's this sort of well, I'll give an example. DJ Breacher said $2,000. That's I don't know the exchange rate with the Canadian dollars, but
yeah, that's okay. I understand $2,000. I understand it.
A year council tax is what we have for bin collection. And that's all it is. Oh, and to have political indoctrination of our children in schools.
Mm-hmm.
So teaching little mites about sex education and things they shouldn't be filling their brain up with at such an early age. Now let them have a childhood first, and now Gallus Gorgeous says voting for a different party always gets the same results. Or voting is like a prisoner choosing what colour door he wants painted on his cell door.
Exactly.
Does he have a red one or a blue one? And this is the thing. This is what gets me. This, as I say, political junkies, and we've got local elections. I think is it 7th of May. I think it's this Thursday coming up, and I guess it's the same in Canada, and they don't come around the doors anymore canvassing.
No.
I wish they'd come around my door.
I wish they'd come around my door.
Yeah.
Oh,
you could give them an education.
If they were prepared to take one, but sadly, I would say that most politicians or most people, in fact, I'm just going to generalize. And again, this is blanket statements like a lot of things I discuss, because obviously this doesn't apply to everybody. But I'm afraid anybody who is still advocating for government has simply got his head in the sand or her head in the sand and has not witnessed evil at its finest over the last 6 years. And let's face it, this isn't the first time government have absolutely tried to annihilate or destroy the human population. They've been good at it since its first inception. It's all about control and power over others. It always will be. Part of that power and control is the ability to decide upon who still has a pulse and who doesn't, on whatever particular whim that they've got. And even if they wanted to call it, let's just say global warming, because of global warming, we've determined that there's too many people on the face of the earth. So therefore it's acceptable. And this is what they'll convince themselves and others and the advocates for their religion, is that it's morally acceptable to eliminate certain, let's just say, quantities of people because of global warming. A fake science where they can shift morality. And one of the problems in the world, I think, in general, and again, I'm generalizing here, one of the big problems that we face is something called moral relativism. Because you made a good point earlier, Monica, about the likes of Andrew Bridge or other politicians who went into politics and they basically went with good intentions, as I did when I became a soldier. I had good intentions. What happens is you enter through a process of indoctrination and inculcating, basically, you develop a culture of what's known as moral relativism, which is the destroyer of our internal monarchy. So monarchy being the rulership. When we don't have internal rulership, we extend that to an external rulership. But moral relativism is the ideology, which is almost a religious ideology, that objective morality does not exist inherently to nature, and that elements of right and wrong are subjective. And these constructs in which human beings invent or arbitrate according to whether it's time, location, circumstances, or preference. But in reality, morality is and always will be objective. That means it's factual, based upon truth and principle. So, for example, rights can never be wrongs and wrongs can never become rights at any time or place. But, however, the moral relativistic mindset, which is what we acquire through a subconscious process of indoctrination and cultural habits and religious dysfunctions, a diseased psyche, in other words. This is what the human population are basically, suffering from. I'm going to say suffering from moral relativism, which happens to be the second tenet in the religion of Satanism. So, again, sorry to labour the point, but Eric mentioned earlier about psychopaths in government are the problem. I'm going to expand upon that slightly. I'm not disputing there's psychopaths in government. Yeah, I'd probably say most of them actually are. But what the biggest problem is we have got a secondary psychopathy. We've inherited a secondary psychopathy as members of the population because we believe in the notion of authority. And what happens is we've become satanically minded as a result. We've lost our moral objectivity, therefore we adhere to ideological Satanism. So that's our problem. We've got a morality problem.
You're spot on, and also our enemy is demoralising us, and no battle has ever been won with a demoralised army, because we're all frontline troops. It doesn't matter what age you are, who you are. That a minority is out to kill us, and we got to defend ourselves. And the first point, I mean, you look at World War II, for example, one of my pet subjects. Sorry, I always get onto World War II, but Britain propaganda. I don't know whether you agree with this, Monica, or not, because your ancestry is, strangely enough, the audience probably already know this. Your father was born the same year as my father was born, and my father was a conscript in the British Army, and your father was a conscript? He was a doctor in the German army.
He was on the front, but I guess as a medic.
On the front line, yeah. As a medic, and you never know, they may have been on the same battlefield. But the thing is, my father was totally against the war. He didn't want to kill anybody, and he had nothing against any German people. And a lot of people, said that. But the thing is I bleeding lost the point what I was getting to. Oh yeah, it was government. One government against another government, where folk generally get on fine with each other. Now, Over here, we've got someone said Labour and Conservative, two cheeks of the same arse. That's Mark Antony. Now, it's Labour and Conservative over here. In America, it's Republican and, what do you call it? Democrat.
Democrats.
What is it in Canada? Is it Democrat and
Liberal? We've got a parliamentary system based on yours.
British, yeah.
Very different from the American system. But anyway, the main parties are the Liberals and the Conservatives. The Liberals are right now in power with Mark Carnage. Oh, did I say that? Mark Carney. Anyway, Carnage, and they just recently actually made it to majority status without an actual election, because there's been some floor crossers. They had a minority government, and now they have a majority government because there's been some floor crossers and some by-elections. There were 3 recent by-elections, and that kind of just got them over the edge there. Now, I have a question, I guess this would be, because of, the discussion surrounding how government is we're mistaken if we think that it's a necessity of life. It's not like food, or it's not like water, which are necessities of life. But I'm just wondering, how do you handle if, let's just say we weren't yet, that we go back some decades to before we were completely overrun by all these foreigners amongst us, because now things are much more difficult.
They're just muddling everything up, aren't they? That's the thing.
But I just want to say,
it's destroying their culture as well as ours.
How do you deal with the protection of your nation? Okay, you can deal with protecting of your family by that we protect ourselves, that the men of our families should protect us. And we have the means to do that. But how do you deal with protecting your nation from the eternal well poisoners, who are the eternal enemy of the our people. So how do you organize that? It's a
Wow.
question,
Good
sincere
point.
question to
Well,
Steve mainly, or to you, Eric. If
I
we
mean,
were to abolish
I'm going to
government, how
say,
do
but
you
I just remembered.
organize a military?
Can I cut in, Steve, just quickly? What I was saying about your father and my father, I lost the bloody plot, but I've just found the plot again. And what it was
Okay.
is that during World War II, British propaganda was better than German propaganda, and that's why it won, because they installed into people, we're going to win. There's no ifs and buts, we're winning. And people were so convinced all the time that we're winning, we're going to win, we're going to win all the time, that the thought of losing the war was just you just didn't even put it into mind. That's what the point I was getting at.
And at the
It's
same
propaganda.
time, the Allies inserted false propaganda into Germany, in German, making it sound like it was German radio stations saying we're losing, to demoralize the German people. So,
That's right.
but who waged that war in reality was the small hats. Those were not
Sefton
allowed to
Delmish.
name.
Sefton Delmish. He was
Sorry?
Sefton Delmish was the head of British
Sefton
propaganda.
Delmer.
Not Delmish, sorry, Delmar.
Atrocity propaganda is how we won the war, and we are only just beginning now. We have better propaganda. Now. We will ramp it up. Basically, I have it in my memory, so it's not going to be word for word right now. But we'll ramp it up until not even a good word will be spoken about the Germans, and until they themselves, the Germans themselves, will be groveling at the feet of the victor and eager to please them. How can we please the victor? They themselves will be so,
That's evil. That was absolute pure evil.
With the atrocity propaganda. And he said, atrocity propaganda is how we won the war. We are going to ramp it up. And then he added that it's like an English lawn. One moment of neglect and those pesky weeds, those indestructible weeds of historical truth will pop back up. It's like an English lawn. Those weeds will pop back up. So he's admitting they won the war with lies, not just because they encouraged the Brits to believe that they're going to win the war, but with lies, and they're going to continue those lies, and that he's admitting it. That's what they were doing. So they ramped up the lies after the war.
But that war is the first casualty of war is truth. But over to you. Sorry, Steve. I butted in there, and I should have done that.
Oh, it's not no. Hey, put in any time. I mean, can I just see if I can extract from Monica's question? I mean, are you indicating that there's a certain group of, let's just say, from a certain Middle Eastern country who are behind the scenes, basically spoiling everything or infiltrating everything?
Psychopaths,
right? Everything.
Psychopaths. No, but we say psychopaths because it's when you look at, we're beginning with Z, Zionists. There are Christian Zionists, Catholic Zionists, Jewish Zionists, all kinds of Zionists.
Yeah, but
that are psychos.
It's through the deception, through the Schofield Reference Bible, through the deceptions and the demoralization, the degeneration of our people. It's always back to that certain tribe from that certain Middle Eastern country. Yes, the ones we're not allowed to name. Or we'd be anti-Semolina or whatever.
Anyway, over to you, Steve. Sorry, man.
All right.
Sorry, I get a little bit frustrated always calling them psychopaths. There's many psychopaths among our people too, but let's just name it. If we can't name the enemy who is trying to kill us,
strict laws in this country,
we have no chance.
I know.
Sorry,
I understand, but
I'm getting really.
The fact is, we've got very strict laws in this country. We've got to be. So
I know, and we're using all these words to cover for it, but we have to be able to name the enemy. We're naming them around the boat.
I think it's happening on its own. To be straight,
can I do that then? I mean, I don't want to name drop, but I'm a former professional soldier. In fact, I used to be in the Soldiers Against Syringes Regiment, which is one of the premier, elite fighting forces on the face of the planet. I pretty much know warfare to a good extent. One of the reasons, or one of the things to establish in warfare is to have a good understanding of the enemy. Let's just say, in fact, all the thinkers from history, Sun Tzu, for example, know your enemy and the battle is won. What he did go on to say, I'll elaborate slightly on that. Know thyself, know yourself, and the war is won. But enough of that. I'm just going to concentrate on the enemy. So again, I'm just extracting what you're saying there, Monica. There's a certain Middle Eastern country who are behind the scenes, who are, you'd class them as the enemy. The enemy that we need to concentrate on, and this is going through the dynamics of what's known as the causal factor, or the causal factors, to get to the root of what the problem is that infects or is affecting this whole situation, is one thing, and that thing is morality. So this small Middle Eastern country plays only a minor part in that role, because there's no nation on earth can affect my morality unless my mind is affected. So there's no Middle Eastern Zionist group anywhere who can affect my mind. Why? Because I own my own mind. My own mind is firmly established with an understanding of morality. Therefore, there's nothing they can do to change that. Can they change the political arena? In other places, yes, they can have influence. That's it. But can they affect the morality of a population who have established a moral education? No, they can't do that. They can only do that if somebody has established mind control and has eroded the capacity for moral understanding, i.e., morality. Well, what is morality? In its most basic setting, what is the difference between right and wrong? Well, we've established that. A right is any action that causes no harm to any other living being. A wrong is any action that does. So is it only Zionists or people from a certain small country in the Middle East who are responsible for right and wrong behavior? Absolutely not. The whole human race and every single individual on the face of the planet is responsible for morality. Now, for example, if any action that causes no harm to another being is my God-given natural-born right, immutable, an undeniable right, this is the truth and principle behind it, well, then if anyone tries to thwart that ability from me, then they are wrongdoers. So at the minute, the police are wrongdoers, the military are wrongdoers, the government are wrongdoers, the politicians are all wrongdoers. It doesn't matter which country these people are from. They could, British people, American people, Canadian people, Jewish people, Australian people, all embrace wrongdoing because they've lacked morality. So the underlying problem faced by the entire world is a lack of the understanding and the adherence, because one thing understanding it, it's another thing actually following it. For example, I'll use this example, and I'll be brief on this. I use this example all the time simply because it's quite provocative. Is smoking cannabis a right or a wrong? Is it a wrong, or is it wrong to smoke cannabis? And I'm not saying I advocate for it. I'm not saying I do it. I'm saying, is it a right or wrong behavior? Well, the answer is it's a right behavior. Why? Because the only harm that can ever be done by smoking cannabis is to one's own personal being.
That's a
Smoking
good
cannabis.
example. Yeah, that's a good example.
Perfect example, Steve. You've
So
said it. Yeah, knocked it on the head.
the reason I say it is because it's mildly provocative, but at the end of the day, cannabis is just a plant. Anyone can grow a plant. But what's happened is there's a group of individuals, not necessarily from a small country in the Middle East, who have designated legislation behind it. What they've done is they've used moral relativistic behavior to coerce, manipulate, deceive, and hoodwink and force. They've used violence to force people into accepting that their terms, which is based in wrongdoing. So if smoking cannabis is a rightful action granted by creation, well, governments, politicians, police, and military the world over have all deemed that to be wrong. Every one of these people is a moral relativistic imbecile, as I once was, and they've embraced satanic ideology. It's nothing to do with the land of a certain Middle Eastern country responsible for that. I would accept the fact that, yes, they've got a major influence on the world stage, but let's face it, if we cannot be affected by the immoral judgments of people who embrace Satanism because we own our own minds, then nothing can be done to do that. So if we are in full ownership of our own minds, the world is saved.
Two things I'll say. One is just a statement, but thank you for that. That was
I'm glad you two have come on. It's a fantastic show, isn't it? Really
we're running your show for you, Eric. So
yeah, I know. I really enjoyed this.
We had to start without you.
It happened for a reason, maybe. You never know.
No, okay, one is great. Cicero, what Cicero said, almost 2,000 years ago, the enemy within is much more dangerous than the enemy at the gate, because the enemy within, you don't see him, you don't know him, because they dress like you, they talk like you, they pretend they are a part of your people, and so we know who we're talking about, right? That's what has brought about the mind control, that has brought about the demoralization, the bad schooling, the brainwashing, all this stuff, right? Okay, but that's my comment. So the enemy within is much more dangerous. So here's the thing, though. This leads to my question. So we know that this certain group of people has been kicked out of country after country after country. Some people will frame it in 109 times, but other people will say over 1,000 times. I guess they're talking about repeated expulsions, or just from regions or city-states or whatever. So whichever way you want to look at it, this group of people has been kicked out many, many times over the last few thousand years. So they would have needed some kind of an organizational entity to do that. It wouldn't have just been one ma and pa with their family over here saying, okay, we're going to kick you out, and then they get kicked out. So how does that happen? You need some kind of an organizational entity. So an army, but does the army where do they get their instructions? Do you call it a government when it's a monarchy or these kinds of institutions? Like, I would like you to comment on that, Steve. How do you deal with that? Because always pointing to this group of people, if they are behind these things, yes, I know we have responsibility, and you've explained that very, very well. But it's like the enemy within is destroying our minds before we're even born. Or who's responsible for flying across the sky doing the geoengineering with the chemtrails? Who's doing this?
Well, one thing, who's funding it? So, I mean, we're talking about morality. Morality is the root causal factor behind most, if not all, the...
Whoop, you froze up.
You're frozen, mate.
There's no...
All right. Hang on. I think we got...
I'm just wondering, how do we get rid of these people again that are damaging us so much?
Well, I think that people, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Which all have... Well, I could name 500 groups that still have influence, if not as much, or on par with international Zionism, that some people probably would never have heard of or never have thought about. One of these groups, and in fact, some of these groups are internationally acclaimed Abrahamic religions of all denominations. Yet they very rarely face, you could say, the scrutiny that this Middle Eastern country does. And by the way, I'm not trying to defend anything here. The only thing I'm trying to defend here is something called natural law, which is the laws of creation, the deterministic value of what we encounter in reality, which is something called natural law. I mean, do you know what? Allow me to explain what that means, because that might put some meat on the bones of our, of our understanding as we go on. As the governing dynamics of the universe that set the conditions that we experience, and they are formulated upon the consequences from our collective behaviors. So when I say our collective behaviors, I'm not focusing upon a nation, a religion, a group, a body of people, our collective behaviors. So the collective behaviors of every individual on the planet is combined. It goes into the aggregate, the mixing pot of the conditions that we experience. But we can extrapolate upon that, because what we can deduce from this, you could say, this logical equation, and this, by the way, this is, we can actually put a mathematical equation to this. But anyway, what we can extrapolate from this is moral behaviors formulate harmony, which enables freedom, and immoral behaviors formulate chaos, which destroys freedom. So it stands to reason that if we want to face and encounter a world with more peace and harmony, then what we need to basically embody is more moral behaviors throughout the whole aggregate of humanity. I'm not going to say that includes everyone. Why? Because it's impossible. You're never going to get everyone who's going to stick their hand up and say, yeah, I promise to be a good guy because I want to see the world a better place. No, that just means as long as we can get more people to understand it, then this can establish itself.
I could see your point. If I can come in here now, there's a chap called Rupert Lowe over here started a new political party, and it's called, was it Restore something? Was it Restore Britain? That's it. Now he's telling people what they want to hear. He's very good at it. He's telling them, and it's like anything else. If you want to, it's a bit like fishing, they put some nice juicy worm on the end of under your bait. A fish is going to come along and grab it, and this is what he's after. And now this chap Andrew Bridgen is signed up to Rupert Lowe's party. Now, allegedly, and I found this out from some good source of information, and I could be proved wrong, so I'm not making an accusation. It's from the information that I have now. And apparently, some mossy people from the Middle East have offered to finance his party, and it's been accepted. This is what I've been led to believe. Now, whether that's true or not, I haven't fully looked into it. But I found this out. It was actually on another political person's website. It was Nick Griffin. And there's another chap, because he was offered a sum of money and he refused it. He said no. He did his moral duty. Now, here's another chap that people have said, why don't you have him on the show? Well, again, but he was a politician. He's kept his word. They came to him and said, there's some nice juicy money. Yeah, we're not going to give him money because they like it. They're going to give him money because they want to have a say in his political movement. So he refused. And there's another one, I can't remember his name now, David Curtin, I think it is. I think he's refused as well. But Rupert Lowe...
Is he a politician now, is he?
David Curtin, I think he is. I like him as a person, but he's Mr. Nice Guy. He won't get anywhere in politics. He's too good. He's too nice.
I mean, if he was a nice guy, he'd realise that all politics is evil and corrupt, and he'd do something. He'd become an anarchist like me, and he'd then be spreading anarchy. I mean, he does seem a likeable bloke. I'm not.
He's a nice bloke, Yeah. But this is the thing. He's taken the king's shilling, so to speak, Rupert Lowe. Not necessarily from the king, but from Mossad, apparently. So, and that's alleged. I don't know for sure. Second-hand information. I'm not making an allegation. I'm just saying this is what I've heard. Okay, so I'm in the clear legally there, you see. Now, I guess it's similar in Canada, isn't it, Monica? Where they're taking back Anders from all kinds of places, Mossad and Uncle Tom Cobley and all. And, this is the trouble. Why should political parties accept cash donations? Is that allowed in Canada?
My understanding of it, the political donations, there are strict limits, upper limits. It's quite strict here compared to, I think, in the United States, at least officially anyway. I don't know if things are going on behind the scenes, that they're getting all kinds of money from somewhere, but
we don't know. But now Alice Gorgeous says, doesn't Nick Griffin only focus on grooming gang stuff? No, that's another bloke called Tommy Robinson. So I think you may have got a little bit muddled up between the two there.
I've heard that Tommy Robinson is a fraud
Israeli. Yes, he's paid by Israel, I believe. There's pictures of him next to a tank and I don't support any country that kills children.
I mean, I've got
Glasgow.
zero
Oh,
time for Tommy Robinson. I mean,
Same here.
if anyone hasn't, I mean, if people are listening in or people are like on the fence, I mean, we are undergoing what is probably the biggest. In fact, it's not probably; it's definitely the biggest psychological warfare operation that was ever devised. It's still ongoing. It's in fact, but to put it more a more militaristic slant on what we're facing. What we're under is something called cognitive warfare. It's basically all full spectrum dominance over the full psychological stratagems that affect human beings, and delivered in connection, in combination with military techniques in order to dominate, subjugate, humiliate, and basically propagate whatever unholy dominance that these people are hoping to achieve over the human population. So if we're at a state of war, and essentially governments are waging war upon their own human population.
Yes, they are.
So exactly, they definitely are. So why is anybody propagating anybody who advocates for government?
Right.
Knowing that government are waging war against us, well, why would you want somebody else, such as Rupert Law? I must admit, I've not heard a single word he's got to offer. I'm not interested. I mean, as far as I mean, I've obviously seen a picture of him on the television. I couldn't care less what the man represents. I've got no interest in what he represents, because ultimately what he represents is human slavery. What he represents is tyranny. Why? Because government and government authority will always partake in slavery and tyranny. They can't do it any other way. They can only exert their dominance, their will, what's known as their will, as opposed to our own will or God's will, through the use of violence and coercion. Both of these forms are part of the 7 transgressions of natural law, i.e., if we want a more peaceful and harmonious world and one established in freedom, well, the only way to do that is to apply what's known as the law of freedom, which is centered upon morality. So if we don't have morality in society, we do not get freedom. So if we want freedom, then we have to work on the morality problems that we have. Morality can be expressed under the 7 dynamics of or the transgressions against human or natural law. So these are things like violence, assault, theft, trespass, murder. I mean, all coercion, deceit, all of these things, these transgressions are the very fundamental principles that are employed by the biggest criminal gang in the world, which is known as the government.
So I keep on thinking about National Socialist Germany that brought about the economic miracle in 6 years. Took Germans from a state of abject poverty and, many people committing suicide because they just couldn't do it. They were, the aftermath of World War I was absolutely devastating. And then, there was a government in place where the leader cared about the people, and everything for the people got that certain parasitical element out of positions of power, and there was an absolute rebirth. The economy
boomed.
How does that happen without a government, though? I really.
Are you talking about Mr. H, the Austrian painter?
Yes.
Can I just ask? I mean, and again, I'm not trying to be provocative here, Monica.
Well, it's a very thought-provoking conversation we're having. So go ahead, provoke.
All right. So there is.
We're all polite people here, so don't worry.
So there is a common assertion that the Austrian painter gentleman had the best interests of his people at heart.
I firmly believe that. I have done a lot of reading, not just of his own work, but others, contemporaries, and then I see what he did with Germany, with the German people, and I firmly
So,
believe that.
so moving aside slightly from the political, bearing in mind politics, poly means many, and ticks are annoying creatures that crawl under your skin. All right, politics. By the way, Parliament. I know, fair enough. The Reichstag, the German Parliament. Well, the word Parliament comes from or derives from two French verbs: parler, which is to speak, and mentir, which means lies. So Parliament, to speak lies. By the way, government, as we've established from the Latin gubernare mentis, which means mind control. So mind controllers who speak lies consist of many annoying crawling little insects that get under your skin. That's what government authority is. It's an absolute fabrication, it's an absolute fabrication based on inauthenticity, lies, deceit, coercion, manipulation. So, for example, if I was to ask the average citizen of Germany during World War II who owns their body, and then fair enough, they're not here to speak, but we can transliterate that into our own day and age. Who owns your body? Well, I own my body. So therefore, why does anybody else have the right, the moral, God-given right this is, to tell me what I do to or with my body? The answer to that is no. The only way somebody can claim to tell me what to do with my body is by coercion or violence, or force
Steve,
of violence.
I just want to bring it back to this. So the German people had really high unemployment. They were absolutely poor. They were not doing well. They were really not doing well. Then along comes this Austrian painter, like you say, like you describe him, and he is a brilliant man and he had many brilliant people around him, and they organized to put people back to work. Within a couple of years, the German people were largely employed. He installed a currency based on labor, based on work, got rid of the Jewish money system, and the people became happy. There were policies that encouraged families. Let me just continue on.
Please carry on, Monica. Yes, please.
I'm just like, to always come back to these definitions of government. I understand that. I get it. But this man brought the people back up off of they were just absolutely in the gutter, doing poorly because of World War I and the aftermath, which was instigated by that same tribe from that, that country that didn't exist yet. Yes. But, okay, so here is somebody who did actually bring the people back up. Now, yeah, in the end, Germany was defeated because the world ganged up on Germany but that was led by the same tribe, the same parasitic tribe. But you could argue that he saved half of Europe from communism for another 60 years or 70 years. I mean, now communism, through the slow march through the institutions, cultural Marxism, that they have basically taken different methods and brought it here too. But my goodness, I mean, we can thank that man for actually preventing communism from just overrunning Europe long ago already. And that,
can I come in as a moderate? Can I come in as a moderation, though? Sorry, I don't mean to butt in, but can I come in as a moderation? That was then, now is now. Now, I personally think in war, terrible things happen on both sides. Atrocities happen on both sides.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about.
No, I know. Now, let's look at the peacetime. He did a lot of good for Germany. There's no ifs and buts about that. Anybody.
The war was brought to him. He didn't want the war.
That's right.
Just to get the historical
I can understand Steve's view. I can understand your view, and I'm trying to be a moderate here. And the lies we've been told about World War II are horrendous. They really are. But I think that history is repeating itself, and the same people that financed World War I and World War II are now going too far. And it's like a petty criminal. A petty criminal goes in and he gets away with stealing something minor, and then they steal something bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually they get to they think they can get away with almost anything, and they get caught. And I think we're in a situation now where they infiltrate the money people now, and we're talking about now, are literally shooting themselves in the foot, metaphorically.
Yeah.
Give them enough rope, they're hanging themselves. Now, we've got to have this look back in history and think, okay, what have we learned from this? Now, I can understand what you're saying, Steve, but you talk about moral, not having government and that. In Germany in 1932, not 1933, people, World War One veterans, were dying on the streets of starvation. They had this idea, like they've got today, where they would sell their property and they would get money for it, and then they'd pay rent. And what happened is they sold their property because they're so hungry, and then they put the rent up, and they were thrown out of their own houses. So you had World War One veterans that were limbless, all kinds of literally dying of starvation and freezing on the streets. So that was then. We're not in that situation now. But now that we understand what's happened there. Now, what we do, we now are educated in what's happened, why the First or Second World War happened, and the situation we're in now. Now, I feel that people, the propaganda that was put out by Britain was so bloody good, they're using it on us, because propaganda is against the people. And we've got to be, this is why I do humour.
Inherently isn't a bad thing. It just has taken on that.
Well, it was, who was the chap? American bloke.
Right? Steve would know, because you're good on words, Steve.
Who was the chap who?
Like, there was good propaganda used to be something that didn't just imply something that was a lie or negative. It just
Edward Bernays wrote a book on propaganda.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the word propaganda did not used to have a positive or negative judgment to it. It just means to basically advertise your view, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, I've got to say, yeah, sorry, carry on, Steve. I've got something to say.
All right. All right.
Carry on, mate.
I'll be brief. I wasn't aware that the word propaganda had any other, implications. If we all understand what it means nowadays, it's basically to subvert or influence other people. And propaganda generally is used in order to strengthen some other political opinion or cause or means to strengthen one's cause. But propaganda, well, what if we break it down into it's got like the lowest common denominator? Well, what is it? It's influencing another person's judgment. Well, another word for influence and judgment is coercion. Coercion is what? Coercion is immoral. So you can see that if people follow, let's just say the average person, if we allow ourselves to follow the will or the determination of other people who claim to have rights, and this is the point I was trying to get to when we were talking about the Austrian painter, who some people assume was doing good for a nation. Well, this is what's known as the ostensible premise, and it's what politicians the world over do all the time. 1 minute they're holding a baby and they're promoting their latest campaign, which is, I don't know, let's just say to free dog food for anybody over the age of 35. Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, isn't Boris Johnson great? And in the meantime, what they don't see is he's just enabled the mass poisoning of an entire generation and the sterilization of his entire country. But the same people are thinking, oh, yeah, he's a great guy because look what he's done for the puppies.
Who are you talking about right now?
I'm talking about Johnson, ex-Prime Minister.
I'm talking about
just to clarify, sorry.
Hypothetically, but what I'm trying to do is just transliterate this upon every single person who claims to have moral authority or what they claim to be rightful authority over any individual nation, population, or anything else. So that's every single politician, every single warmonger, which of course, in fact, I'm going to change that to every evil politician, because you can't be a politician without being evil-minded, whether they know it or not. They're evil-minded. Why? Because evil, the evil is described as the destruction of freedom. Well, what do politicians do? They destroy freedom. Why? What do? They destroy rights, liberty, autonomy, sovereignty, and all moral principles that human beings naturally possess in nature, granted by the Creator, a gift of creation. They become, whether they know it or not, or wish to be it or not, they become self-appointed gods on earth, where they think they've got the self-appointed determination to make rightful claim of ownership over other individuals. This is the same as Mr. H. He made the immoral claim of ownership over the entire nation of Germany, and fair enough, you could say there was a lot of people done well, prosperous out of some of the things that he enabled. Let's face it, what is fascism? Fascism is military, right-wing, deterministic power or using brute force against a people. So
I thought fascism is nationalism, basically.
Well, what is nationalism?
Listen to Adrian Arcand, a guy who was in a Canadian camp during the whole duration of World War II, and he was a fascist, and he was somebody who was aspiring to be a politician.
Yeah, but fascism isn't national
socialism. I learned
socialism.
new things, because fascism is a very lied about term, too.
Yeah, but hang on a minute. Fascism and national socialism are different, because
No, I said a nationalist.
Yes,
meaning you care about your nation, meaning you care about your people, your race.
By doing
your
what?
Race.
But
I just wanted. I didn't mean to. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, because you were not finished. No, so please continue. But I just wanted to clarify what. I just wanted to clarify what my understanding now, my new learned understanding of fascism. This is quite new for me. But carry on. I would like to hear the rest of what you were saying, Steve.
Sorry, Monica.
Let Eric speak. All right. Well, I was going to say, fascism and communism. I mean, which one of the? Have you got preferences to which one you'd rather have?
They're completely opposite. They're completely opposite.
But what do they both do? What thing have they got in common? Fascism and communism, you could say, are either end of the political spectrum. Well, what do they do? What do they both do? What do they not? Let's put it a simpler way. What do they not do? They don't give anybody capacity for individual self-autonomy, sovereignty, and the ability to exercise conscience. So if you can't exercise conscience, you can't exercise moral judgment. You have to become a moral relativist. You can't become an individual sovereign being and a moral relativist. Bear in mind, moral relativism is a tenet of Satanism. Therefore, communism and fascism or national socialism, because they're all, in fact, let's put democracy into this as well. Democracy in the middle, communism and fascism on the other end of the spectrum. Every single one of them are elements of socialism, every one of them. That includes fascism. It's a branch of socialism. Democracy is slowly escalating socialism. And obviously communism is just full-on socialism. That way, the let's just say the monarchy, the politicians, the authoritarian class believe that they've got sole ownership over the entire spectrum of people, i.e. the people don't own themselves. The people who proclaim to be the leaders have professed that claim. A claim of ownership is an act of slavery, and slavery is immoral. So all types of politics, all branches of politics, of branches of slavery, and advocates of politics or advocates for slavery. That's it. You can't. I mean, I'm boiling this down into simple chunks for the benefit of people who still have sort of notions of political flavors. All branches of politics are inevitably slavery. Human slavery will never lead to freedom. Therefore, if we want freedom, the only way to do that is to become internal champions of our own sovereign beings. We have to own ourselves And that ownership starts in the mind. That mind means we need to free ourselves of the belief of religious authority from things like government and all other sorts of, I'll just say beliefs in general. If we've got beliefs, we can't adhere to moral principle.
Wow, isn't this a fantastic show? This is Monica.
I have to leave soon.
But Monica, we're having a polite discussion, and and this is what I'm so honoured to have you people here. Thank you so much, because I'm really enjoying this. I ask people to put questions in capitals. Okay, so if something's in capital letters, I read it out because it catches my eye better. Someone said here, question, do you think Tommy Robinson spent any time in jail? I haven't the foggiest idea. I don't know. But
Probably
what I was
not.
going to say, I'm going to say something now, which might upset people. Okay, right. Now,
what's that?
I'm going to say something that might upset people. It's a little question of history. In the 20th century, okay, a country, I won't mention what country it is, at a time of war, set up a series of concentration camps. Okay, so remember this, 20th century, a country set up a series of concentration camps. What country, and it was the first country to do this. What country was it?
South Africa.
Britain.
Spot on. But not only that, in the Boer War, on its homeland, I'm serious now, in the First World War, you could get postcards where you could visit the outside of these, and they called them concentration camps, where they rounded up people of German heritage, men, not women and children, men, and herded them in there. And there's some pensioners as well. And there's a lot of German men that couldn't even speak, because they had German surnames, they couldn't even speak German. They were first and second generation.
I thought that they put women and children in those Boer.
In the Boer War, yes, but I'm talking about Britain in the First World War. People are unaware that we had a series of concentration camps in the First World War, and one was at Alexandra Palace near London, where the BBC made its first broadcast from.
And Canada had camps, America had camps. Nobody talks about those.
And the men were beaten up by the guards, and they had to, they were treated, they were starved, and they were treated very, very badly. That is something that has been swept under the carpet. That is 100% true. So the thing is that history is very important. People say, oh, I don't want to know history, because history repeats itself. And what you find throughout history is governments turn on their own people all the time, because more people have been killed by their own governments than all the wars put together. Now, what I was saying about, you was talking about National Socialism, fascism, and communism. Fascism, I believe, and I could be wrong, that comes from the sticks, the fasci, which is Italy. And National Socialism is very different, slightly different to fascism. And I mean, you had, for example, Franco was fascist, but Mr. H hated his guts, and he said he'd rather have his teeth pulled out without anaesthetic than meet Franco. And you notice there's pictures of them when they're shaking hands, looking away from each other. They couldn't stand each other. They couldn't tolerate each other. I didn't know whether you knew that, Monica. Yeah, apparently they hated each other's guts. They were different types. But the fact of the matter is that was then. Now is now. We've learnt, and I can take on board what Steve is saying. If you'd talked about morality and governments and how bad they are, then people were of a different understanding. Now, I think we've got to learn from our history and say, right, what we need to, let's draw a line in the sand and say, right, we don't want bloody governments. Full stop. End of. And I like what's happening in Southern Ireland. When politicians walk into a shop, small shops, I'm not talking about the big ones, they refuse service. So, sorry, get out. Don't want you here. This is happening in the small towns in Ireland. politicians are being refused. That's a good start. So I think we've got to draw a line in the sand. We can argue about the past until the cows come home, but we've got to understand the past. Yes, I agree. But we got what we've learned from the past. What we learned from history is we don't learn from history.
I would agree with you there.
And the fact of the matter is, I think that Mr. H came along at the right time for Germany. Okay, I think he came along because if he hadn't have come along at that time, God knows what would have happened. The German, there would have only been about 10 or 20% of the Germany remaining.
I agree with what Blu-ray just said there.
Where are we?
Opposite, but it's all control on humanity, and they are all.
Well, hang on a minute. We're just going to say goodbye to Food for Thought Radio. Sorry about that. Carry on, Monica.
Because the theys in quotation marks have been hiding behind the curtain. That has always been the case. They have been thrown out of country after country after country when the people finally got fed up with their criminality and their degeneracy and their, like you say, Steve, the war on the mind that has always come from this devil worshipping group of people. And I do have to go now too.
Yes, I think you have to. I'm sorry about this tune that says us goodbye to Food for Thought Radio.
It's a good time to go for me too. But somebody in the chat said I need chocolate. Maybe I do too.
Monica, thank you for coming on. I do apologise for the background sounds from the any minute now.
It's all very beautiful. It was very thought-provoking, very thought-provoking. Thank you for that.
Can you start for a little while, just a little while longer?
Okay, just a couple of minutes so we don't have to
Wake
override.
up your mind, fill up your day, smart little bites that brighten your way. You're listening to Food for Thought Radio. You're FFTradio.com. Cluck, moo, oink.
Thank you very much, everybody. That's Food for Thought Radio, but we're still broadcasting live on Rumble, YouTube, Holy Land Radio, Holy Land FM, Radio Soapbox, Telegram, Facebook, and Uncle Tom Cobley and all. What I'd like to do is thank Monica, Steve. What my aim with this show is to have people with differing views to speak politely to each other so that we end the show with people thinking, Monica had a good point there and Steve had a good point there, and let people think. Because I get bloody fed up with seeing these YouTube videos with people going, shouting on, doesn't get anywhere. And I love this, and this has been perfect tonight. Thank you so much, Monica.
I'll just tell you something. You're so welcome. It was a pleasure. It was very, very thought-provoking. I'm glad that it's still midday here, like 2 p.m. now. Yeah. Because if it was bedtime now, I'd probably stay awake for a few hours because there's so much going on in my head. Because it was very thought-provoking. So thank you very much for that. But anyway, yeah, I think I'll go have some chocolate now and get out into the sun.
I think there's a lot of brainwashing against Mr. H. And
the most lied about man that walked the face of this earth ever.
And President Kennedy.
I finally got over that Pavlovian response to him myself a few years ago now. But the most lied about man ever, of course, because that same tribe, they always, wow, I mean, he was a big threat to them, was he not? But anyway, it was very thought-provoking. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Eric. I'll say goodbye now. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you. Hang on, just got to press the buttons. Here we go. Whee! That's it. Steve, bloody brilliant show. That because you see, I like people with differing views, and I hope I was moderate enough on there. I like to moderate.
Oh yeah, of course.
I think we need to draw a line in the sand and say we've learned from this. How are we going to go forward? And my feeling is we do need a polite force of peace force to protect us, because people are very alone when they step out against government.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I would totally endorse that. But what needs to run parallel, or probably, I'd say probably, what definitely needs to be more, or the impetus needs to be, and again, the occult needs to be demystified amongst more people, because many of the things I've brought up into the conversation today, even though they've been fairly short and I haven't elaborated massively, these are occult principles based on the laws of nature and the human psyche. And when we realize that both of these elements of our being and our experience in the world are both interlinked, that both of them affect each other and vice versa, until both of those bicameral elements are worked upon through what's known in the occult world as the trivium, the three-part nature, the pathway, or the three roads that merge into the truth. When we can branch down into that methodology of learning and understanding, then we come to the answers reveal themselves. And I mean, in a very short nutshell, these answers are known as objective morality. They can be objective morality as a product of self determination, which is also a product of the non-aggression principle. And if we can merge these elements of what's known as hidden knowledge, hidden occult knowledge, into a more general consensus of understanding, the freedoms will generate themselves.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, the thing I was going to say, by the way, I'll just put that up there. And Alice Gorgeous has said, I'll get a bit embarrassed about that tune at the end. I'm gonna have to ask Paul to change that. Alice Gorgeous, the fart in the background was Keir Starmer after a parliamentary session. I like that one. But let's face it, Steve. If we were German and we were living in Germany in dire poverty in 1933, I'm sure we would have supported Mr. H. You couldn't have blamed
Quite possibly.
us.
I mean,
you probably would.
I mean,
and
definitely.
Definitely. And I mean, my parents, with the information they had then, years ago, they were passionate about supporting the Labour Party.
Mm-hmm.
I can't blame them, because with the information they had then, the sun shone out of Harold Wilson's arse. He was. Exactly. But the thing is, you can't blame people for believing things then. But then was then. I mean, for example, my father always vouched that if he had ever had a son, he'd never put a gun in the son's hand because of what he saw during World War II. Mm-hmm. Now, I wasn't brought up with guns and toy guns, but that was then. But now is now.
Exactly.
And now is now, and I'm interested in things. Mm-hmm. Put it that way. and I haven't got any things apart from a pea shooter like that, you see, which it might be able to knock an ant out with it or something like that. But no, seriously, I think that this is the thing we've got to go. Is then was then, we learn from it. Now is now. Now is very different, and I think that most people are good people. And what we've got to do, and this is my personal feeling, is sort out the bloody psychos, shove them on an island on their own, get them there. And you convinced me that they would have to be forcibly put on that island. I'm not talking about a desert island. I'm talking about one with infrastructure so they can live their lives out there, but away from us. Because I think that decent folk throughout the world, and it doesn't matter where you go. I mean, there's lots of Israelis that are actually in jail for protesting about what's going on in Palestine. So, we can't tie everybody with the same brush and things like that. No, this is why I say psychopaths. That's our enemy. Psychopaths. And that could be any religion, any race, doesn't matter. I mean, look at these arseholes in power. I mean, I was watching that Chinese chap. I can't remember.
Professor Yang.
Yeah, Yang, that's it.
Yeah.
And he explained it very well, and he reckons that America, what they're doing, they want the Straits of Hormuz to be blocked so that people can then buy oil. Where from? America. Because remember, who supplied oil to Britain during World War II? America. The oil was coming across the Atlantic.
There's one thing that people need to know about warfare, and this took me a long time of going around the world and and being involved in warfare. Warfare is not against nation versus nation or group versus group. It's about the elites, the banking cartel, the dark occult sorcerers of this world who rule over humanity and against the human population. So, I mean, I give presentations on World War II. World War II was against the human population. It wasn't the Allies versus the Axis troop. It was against the human population.
Yeah, that's right. And also, which people don't realise, because that's one of my pet subjects. I was brought up with it almost every day because both my parents had shell shock. I didn't realise at the time that my mother had it, but I do realise now. But the fact of the matter is that people don't realise that the Allies carried out euthanasia, because once you was in the front line, you were kept in the front line, and if you were wounded, you were patched up, and you were kept there and kept there and kept there and kept there, because they didn't want, and the people at the time knew that, there to be a burden on the welfare system after the war.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well finish them off on the front line. And that's a fact. That's an actual provable fact. So when you think terrible, it's evil with evil and evil and evil. And this is the thing with this war in Middle East at the moment. There's always a little bit of good that comes out of bad. And I think that more and more people are beginning to see through what's going on through war. I mean, look at the innocent children that are killed, the innocent family. Nice folk, decent folk. I've worked with Iranians. I've worked with Israelis. I've worked with all types of people. And as Danny Kaye said many years ago, people with people are bloody nice. It's just when they get into groups they get the problem. And that boils down to what you're saying. People on their own, fine. Put them into groups. And that was Danny Kaye that said that. And he was spot on.
Exactly right. I mean, this is why I promote anarchy, because anarchy means it. I mean, again, a lot of people are still confused over what that means. Anarchy means no masters. The word itself means no masters. And if you've got no masters, then you've got no slaves. And when people are not slaves, they've got the product of freedom. And when they've got freedom in their bodies, they've also got freedom in their minds. And when they've got a free mind, they can exercise something that was gifted by nature itself. It's called a conscience. So there doesn't need to be a law to tell somebody of any country, of any color, or any education, that to murder somebody is wrong. That doesn't need to be written in law. Everybody knows that because it's written upon our hearts. We know it's wrong, but if we cannot exercise conscience, then we get driven by the nature of our job. So, for instance, I was a murderer. As for money, my job description was simply to close with and kill the enemy. That was it. Very blunt, very concise. To be a murderer for money. At the time, I believed that murdering at the bequest of the British government was correct. Why? Because I was a dumbo. Right? Because I'm no longer as dumb as I used to be, and I've gained a moral conscience, and I've realised that actually my head was in the wrong place. I was brainwashed by my society, by my government, by my education to believe in moral relativism. So I was satanically minded. When we rid ourselves, when we become able to exercise our own conscience, become anarchists, where we've got no masters to tell us how to live our lives because we own ourselves. Nobody else has that right. We own ourselves. We make our own moral determinations. And if we base that with a sensible understanding of morality, understanding the difference between right and wrong, for example, then the world will experience and grow in consciousness and experience more freedom. It's inevitable.
You're spot on. The fact is how we're going to get there is the thing. I mean, by the way, I was saying similar. I haven't been in the army. Sorry, I said I was a bonehead as well because I was freelance and I've worked on all kinds of projects. And when I look back, I think, well, I should have worked on that project. I didn't work on this project. But the fact was, how much? Oh, yeah, I'll go for that. I mean,
Yeah.
you become like that. You're chasing Danny Dollar. That's the trouble. But again, it's like everything else. You know, Mozart was shit at music when he was 3 months old. But he grew up. You know, he learned how to play things. You know. Now, Sam says the most visible trait of personality of the good human is, does he, she want power over someone else? Good point. Does he, she want to dominate someone else? Excellent point. Yes.
That's a brilliant point there. I mean,
that really is
essentially,
brilliant. That really is good. Yeah.
essentially, this is the secret of the secret societies, is to be able to enable a balanced brain. You know, the two hemispheres of the brain, the male and the female aspects. The essentially what the human brain is the ability to apply non-aggression and self-defense. And if you can bridge that gap and do it in equal measures, i.e. yin and yang, unify the two hemispheres of the brain and become balanced in judgment, then the world that we know it, the outside world, will mirror the inside world.
You're
so
right.
the answer to your point before, how we're going to go about it, well, essentially people need to have the mindset of the adherence to the secret societies. They balance the corpus callosum between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. So they apply these two fundamental principles in nature in equal measures.
You're right. Now, I mean, every war funded by Rothschild since Napoleon times. Yes, that's correct. Battle of I think it's the Waterloo, where they literally bankrupted the country. And I think the only way of getting rid of these pesky people, I'm not talking about violence here, I'm not talking about aggression, is to starve them of their lifeblood, which is money. That's it. You take their money away, they've got no power.
I mean, I wouldn't rule out pitchforks, to be fair, but yeah, hey,
yes,
whatever people want.
The fact is, though, is that you'll be. I think we got to understand the enemy is demoralising us all the time, making us depressed, and this is why we got to go back to this World War II ideas. We're winning. We're going to win. We're not going to lose. We're winning. And it's like, if you want something like, I don't know, say this was a very rare pencil, and I wanted this pencil. I'd imagine myself with this pencil, and I'd think and think and think. My God, what's that?
I'll shield the cat's bum.
You know, it looked funny. You got this sort of thing coming up. You're thinking, well, what's it? I thought, man, God.
The cat wants some limelight.
Hello, mate. What a beautiful cat. But as I say, if this pencil, I wanted this pencil, I didn't have one of these, I'd probably think and think and think and think and think that I want one of these pencils. And one day I'd probably get one. Because I'm imagining, you know, you're sort of, and I actually do believe, I'm not religious, but I do believe there are demons, and I do believe there's things that we can't see that are beyond us and things like that. But there is a reason why you went through the army. There is a reason which has educated you and there's a reason that we all go through different things that are not us, because it educates us.
Yeah.
Because the whole of life is, you know, a university of life. And I think
I agree.
And I mean, what gets me, if you get some toff come up to you, so, hey, I've got qualifications. They're as thick as shit most of the time. I've worked with them. But someone that's had a few hard knocks, had the edges knocked off of them a bit, they become very, very wise. And this is the trouble with these politicians. They're bleeding stupid. Why? Because they haven't had a tough life. They haven't had to worry about things. They haven't, you know, I mean, when you look at Keir Starmer, I bet he was a spoilt kid. Mummy, I want that toy. He got that toy. Mummy, I want this. I want that. I can almost imagine it. But what gets me is that people are now worshipping this bloke Lowe, Rupert Lowe. Oh, he's marvellous and all that. They're going to be very disappointed.
Well, ultimately, yeah, because the guy's still a politician. The word politics is always going to be annoying, crawling insects.
Yeah.
Parliament's always going to mean speak lies, and government's always going to be mind control. So at which stage is Rupert Law going to realise right from wrong and say, oh, actually, I've just had a rethink. Everything that government does is based in immorality because it's violence and coercion. Therefore, I'm an advocate for evil. Evil is the destruction of freedom. Therefore, I'm going to resign and become an anarchist, join the Occult Academy on Telegram and advocate for natural law, along with then I'm going to promote Fake Awake. That, I mean, if Rupert Law was a top guy, that's what he would say. And I mean, ultimately, this is where we need to look at a mirror, because if we are advocating for people who advocate for immorality, such as Rupert Law, so if anyone out there is listening and they think Rupert Law's the answer, well, basically, you think government is the answer and the solution. Well, government is slavery.
It's Junkie again. It's Junkie gave it. I think I'll have a dose of Rupert Lowe because it's going to be fantastic. Yeah. Bullshit.
I mean, essentially, you've just played into the center base of what's known as polarizing dialectics. The left and the right paradigm, the donkey and elephant cult, is well established. The red versus blue team. In the middle of that comes the savior. Well, who is it? It's Mr. Rupert Law. I mean, I couldn't give two hoots about Rupert Law. No. I'll never listen to a single thing he's got to say.
Nigel Farage.
Yeah, him as well.
He was man of the year. Sorry, not man of the year. He was the geezer. And apparently someone in chat has looked it up on Grok, and apparently Rupert Low's party isn't accepting money from Israel. So there we go. So, but again, I'm not making accusations. I'm just going on secondhand information.
Hey, wherever he's accepting money from, he's not accepting anything from me, because I'll not pay politicians or government a single penny. I don't believe in slavery, so why would I fund it? And essentially, this is where we need to start looking inwardly. If we are funding slavery, well, Houston, we've got a problem here, and it's not a small hats in the Middle East problem. It's a problem with our own internal dialogue. We need to be more honest with ourselves, and we need to stop lying to ourselves. If we're funding and advocating for slavery, well, guess where the problem lies, and it's not over the Star of David.
Well, you're right. You're right. And quite honestly, I don't like blunking everybody in sort of into the same pot, so to speak, because there are people who are of that persuasion, shall we say, who are pro-Palestine, who get a heck of a lot of thrashing for it. So we can't, I don't like generalising. We're not generalising at all, but the thing is that I tell you what I'm going to do on May the 7th. I think that is polling day. I'm really going to go out of my way to go down the road and not vote. I'm not going to any of it. I walk past it.
I didn't even know it was polling day. What is it? May the 7th?
Thursday, I think it is, isn't it? Is that
I would say if that is the case, if anybody is, again, I'm not trying to be, rude to anybody listening in, but if anyone's going to the polling station, no matter who you're voting for, you basically vote.
Sorry. Bloody hell.
The cat's. What's that?
Oh, it's all right. Cat's a star. The only reason I go to the polling station is to, excuse my language, to piss up the door.
Well, that's all I would do. What we're doing is we've basically, if we are genuinely going to vote for whoever that might be, and again, I would rubbish every single politician, everyone who stands for whatever political party. Why? Because they're all maniacs. They all believe in slavery. They all believe that violence and coercion is morally acceptable. They've got to, because you can't govern another person without being violent towards them. It's practically and physically impossible. But what I would say is, if we're voting, what we've done is we've basically said that we are incapable of being responsible for our own actions and thoughts, because we need a mummy and daddy to tell us which side
on. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll elaborate that slightly under the most polite way I can. You've got to be clinically insane. If
Yeah.
you think government is the solution, bearing in mind they've just genocided 6 billion people, with I mean, I don't know what I can say on YouTube, but I'm sure we all know what we're talking about here. Can you read that, by the way?
Yes. Yes.
If
The Primus prickers.
Exactly.
But it
I
was
mean,
quite on. Yeah. I mean,
if that organization can use that, and people think that this organization is going to be responsible for our futures, we've got to be clinically insane. We've got to be maniacs.
well, there was another poll that I put in on Telegram, and I took it off. The reason I took it off, I had a gut feeling that it's not. You see, the spies at B look on Telegraph and places like that, and this was the questions I was going to have. If we have a court, if all governments have committed treason under the 1848 Treason and Sedition Act.
Exactly.
So if we have anyone that's ever served in government, a people's court that came to justice, if those that are found guilty, should they be, one, hung using the long drop system, which Pierpoint perfected, B, put on an island, given life imprisonment, or C, put on an island somewhere. And I did the poll and I put it down and I thought something about that. I had a gut feeling that that would draw attention from the powers that we don't want. So I took it off. I just had that feeling. I just thought that would draw that, because anything like that. But it would have been interesting to see what would have been the top vote. I mean, I would have voted for putting them on an island. I think it's the most humane thing you can do. Families can visit them. The families can live with them if they want, but they can't mix with us. And I think that's it. We've got to make a clear distinction between psychopath and human. That's it. And it's not discriminatory, because it occurs in all races and religions and that. And I know it's my sort of pet thing that I go on about, but it does. I bang on about that. We've got to sort that out. But I do think I'd like to interview. Who was it now? I know somebody. Was it yourself that knows that bloke who's in the Hells Angels? He's starting like a police force.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I know one of the guys who involved.
Chris something, is it? Chris.
I can't remember.
But
I know another guy who was involved in setting that up.
Yeah,
we need to promote sure if they're still going.
I hope they are. I mean, the Peace Force, PEACE, that's pretty good. And Alice Gorgeous has said here, no party is fit to stand. And that's interesting. Why are they called a party? Because I thought a party was where people joined together and had a good time.
Well, I think they're
party.
Yeah, I think they're celebrating and having a good laugh at our expense. Just getting pissed on champagne and snorting cannabis while they go off and do ungodly things to people of a certain age.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And
yes.
Hey, I mean, I could go on and on and on over the complete immorality of the things they're doing. But fundamentally, my big thing is we need to stop looking at external problems, the problems that we have got. And I'm saying this is broad brush. Collectively, the problems we are facing are internal problems. We've got an internal dialogue problem. The inner world, the microcosm, is a direct reflection of what we receive in the macrocosm. And again, I could say that in a very short statement, but you have to see it to believe it. You have to study the occult geometry, the dynamics behind how natural law behaviors and conditions manifest.
I agree.
This has to be seen, and when you realize that we reap what we sow. So if we're advocating and funding immorality through government and they become our lords and masters because we're incapable of becoming our own lords and masters, well, what we've done is we've rejected the laws of God, the laws of creation, and we've accepted immorality. We've accepted the laws of the black cube of Saturn. We've accepted the legislation, which is all based on unholy doctrine, immorality, inauthenticity. We've accepted that into our system, and we're advocating for it. So we need to fix ourselves. If we want to fix the world, we need to fix ourselves.
I agree. And I'll tell you something, as a chap called Henry, I was on YouTube, a young chap, and he's very interesting. And he talked about barra boys. Now, that was a term that was used when I was a kid, barra boy. Oh, the old barra boys. And he said, well, what it was, by the way, that chap, thanks, Blu-ray, it's Chris Hargreaves. That's the name. I'll look him up and I'll try and get him on the show. And if you like, come on, Steve, as well with him. I think that'd be a bloody good show. But what I was going to say is we need enterprising people like Barra Boys that used to come around the streets with all the stuff that they've grown, food, that people can buy. Because I think we've got to do this locally, and you get some Barra Boys that specialise in growing, I don't know, tomatoes. Another one grows potatoes. And this is what we need. And I think that the goodness that's coming out of what's happening in the Middle East is that we're not going to have any more or so much of this artificial fertilizer that's destroying our soil. We might be going back to organic. And they say, and organic, it is very productive. The farmers years ago really knew their stuff. And, now, hang on a minute. Alec Gould just said, did anyone protest the colonial era? Did anyone protest the colonial? I don't know. Did they? Sorry, Dallas. Can you explain something? Well, I don't know.
I'm not sure what she means by that. I mean, Alice has usually got some excellent points, by the way. I mean,
yes.
I don't often mention some of the comments I made, but there are some excellent comments, by the way. There always is on your shows. So, hats off to everybody who takes time out to...
It's brilliant. Well, I think we've had I'm sorry, Alice, I don't understand the question. I'm very so sorry. You always put good questions in. I've really enjoyed tonight's show, and I think that Monica and yourself... I'd like to do that again, actually. I think that's bloody good, wasn't it, really?
I like Monica.
Really was good. I like Monica a lot.
I'll be quite honest. I don't necessarily side with some of her opinions, but I mean, I find her an interesting and lovely woman to speak to.
Yes. Yeah. And
quite happily debate.
I think that was great tonight because it wasn't heated. We're just putting our points of view over. Fantastic. And it got people to think. And yes, I mean, I upset people when I say Mr. H came along at the right time. Yes, he saved a lot of lives. I upset people when I say, but I want to be a fly on the wall. I want to see things neutral. But again, that was then. Now is now. It's a different thing. I mean, it depends on where you want to go in history. Like I was saying, concentration camps. We had them in the Boer War, but we also had them in the First World War. British had it.
Well, just a quick one on concentration camps. And again, I never mentioned this when Monica was talking, but I mean, we're kind of debating on whether, the Austrian dude was a good guy or not. Well, collectively, their political party, their first concentration camp was established on a date known as the Satanic Season of Sacrifice, March the 22nd, 1933, I believe, which was Dachau. So Dachau was the first concentration camp established in Nazi Germany on March the 22nd, the Satanic Season of Sacrifice, the very same day that Boris Johnson announced, sorry, folks, lockdown. And I mean, if people don't understand occultism and understand the darker aspects to it, because there's good bits and there's bad bits, the people who are in charge of us to calling all the shots, well, guess what? They're advocates of all the what's known as dark occult sorcery. the means to manipulate people by subjugating their minds using fear and deceit, duress, and other forms of violence in order to basically have people on their knees begging for mercy. That's what sorcery is. It's not I'll wave a stick and suddenly something's going to happen. Over on the other side of the world. No, it's about how to subjugate a human mind. And that's what they're doing. I mean, March the 22nd, many things. Look at the Westminster Bridge attack. Look at the Belgian bomb. Look at the Crocus City terror attack. Look at the Iraq War shock and awe campaign, the US invasion of Libya. I could go on and on and on and on and on with all the dark occult associations that are used in warfare or acts of terrorism or government psychodramas. They use the occult calendar. Why? Because this is how their dark religion works. They subjugate people, and they do it relying upon the tenets and the formulation of the satanic calendar. Hey, if we want to be Satanists, well, that's what we're paying for, Satanists.
That's it. I mean, what Alice School just said, the English, what she's talking about, colonialism, the English elite taking over India, Africa, etc. Well, again, that was then and now is now. And I worked with an Indian chap who reckons that the British Empire did a lot of good for India, because what happened is there was the different castes in India. There was the untouchables and a terrible snobbery. And one thing that the British did stop was that if a husband died, the woman was expected to throw herself onto his funeral pyre, and the British outlawed it. And there's a lot, for example, in America, in North America, there's this idea that North American Indians are all full of peace and love, and they went around and they had dream catchers. No, savages. They really were savages. And there were the Beaker people there wasn't any sign of war, but generally, if you got captured by an Indian, you'd be skinned alive. They brought torture into So we did outlaw a lot of these practices and bring civilization. And again, this Indian chap said they didn't. The English were quite liked, and he said they brought they released a lot of slavery in India. So and he said they introduced law and order. So. I like to be open-minded. Both of us weren't alive at that time. We weren't there, so we can only go by second and third information.
Yeah, precisely.
I don't know. That's the
thing. I like the point you're making. We want to move forward. So what we can't do is we can't just hang on to the past and expect, well, that's how we've done it in the past, so therefore we expect that to be the future. Well, that's not making progress. We need to evolve. And the way to evolve is to evolve in consciousness, which means we need to learn the lessons of the past and apply them in principle to the future. And that involves, well, we've determined that, let's just say Native Americans used to do X, Y, and Z. Well, don't like the sound of that part of what they used to do. Let's not do that. However, let's do the good things. And if part of that is, just for example, growing organic vegetables, everyone would agree that that's a great thing. Well, we can move forward with that, but we need to learn how that's done. We need to learn how we can establish that in a larger, to feed a larger amount of people. But equally, the rules and regulations that we realize that were mistakes of the past, well, we don't need to apply them now. We need to learn and grow. That's right. So it's a big education process, isn't it?
I agree. And if we have barrow boys going around selling their produce, we don't want tax people after them. What they earn, the money you give them, they can put in their bloody pocket and spend whatever way they want. It's entirely up to them. Feed their wife and family or whatever. So, and I've got this bloody fly buzzing around me. It's been driving me up the sodding wall all evening. Go away. That's it. No. Can you see? Look, he's over my microphone.
I can see him, yeah. He's having a bit of airtime.
Yes, he certainly is. Will you go away, please?
It's like a pet show, this. I've got cats jumping all over the computer.
Yeah, I've got bleeding flies, yeah. No blasted flew in. I didn't find out from Monica what the weather's like in Canada. I don't know whether it's still snow there, but I think it's melting a bit now. You know. But now what's this? Alice Gordon says painting them as savage, not true. Well, some of them were. Some of them were savages. You only got to read. There's quite a few books on it. Something dance, was it scalp dance, something like that? Well researched. But then when you go to Australia, the Aborigines, a lot of the British prisoners that went over there, you know, people were sent to Australia for stealing a loaf of bread because they were hungry, or anything like that, or they might have been innocent. And some of the prisoners that escaped from the jails in Australia, on the penal colonies, the Aborigines took pity on them and looked after them. And that's why you've got a lot of half-caste Aborigines today, because quite a few prisoners were cared for by them. And there's a film, I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but it's fascinating. It was with Alan Wicker in the 50s. It was black and white. And he was actually interviewing a chap. I don't think he was an ex-prisoner, but he lived amongst the Aborigines as a white chap. And they saved his life. So, you know, you've got to look at all kinds of things. And they reckon that when the early settlers landed in the Mayflower in America, they wouldn't have survived if it hadn't been for the Indians. The Indians showed them how to survive. So it cuts both ways. It depends on where you go and who you meet. But I used to know a girl who was an anthropologist. And she was saying that the tribes that have a hierarchy and have a chief are the most aggressive, and the ones that don't have a hierarchy are the most peaceful. So there we go. So we want to be like the peaceful tribes that don't have they have the elders, yes. And I think we should have the elders as well, who you respect.
Yeah, of course.
And you
learn from, don't you?
You learn from them. And this is how the Amish work. It's the elders that make, and they're a perfect example of not having a government. They work all right. But it's the elders that make the decisions. But anyway, on that note, tomorrow night, are we going to do a little bit of survival stuff?
Yeah, I mean, have you got anything in mind, or has anyone in the chat got anything that they'd like to cover?
What to do with a Sharpie?
I mean, I can cover self-defense. I can cover things like situational awareness, the survival mentality, psychological self-defense. I mean, anything survival related.
The thing is that the key thing now is that this lack of fertilizer is going to give us a food shortage. And if you've got food, I personally think they're hyping it up a little bit. Food will become expensive, yes, but I think that enterprising people will find a way of growing food cheaply again, not using this fertilizer. And this could be the bit of good that comes out of bad. Providing people don't starve, I actually think that we might do better out of it. Because I always think there's no such thing as a disadvantage. It's a golden opportunity. And I think it's a golden opportunity to get quality food.
Well, how about, I mean, we could combine tomorrow with also edible wild plants, you know, because...
yes. As a few, hang on. We've got here, no, hang on. Matilda said self-defense and situational awareness would be good. That's Matilda.
Right, brilliant. Thanks, Matilda.
And I've got some chicory in my garden. I thought that was only for budgies. Can you eat chicory?
You can make, well, chicory is similar to dandelion. You can use it in a similar way, yeah. You ever had chicory coffee?
Yes. Do you remember camp coffee with a Scotsman drinking his coffee? Yes,
I must admit, I was never a big fan of it, but you can make dandelion root coffee, which is very much like chicory coffee.
Right, and Aunt Sally said, I'd still like to know what to do with a Sharpie. Well, you've got to know what to do with it if you come up against Keir Starmer, but you might enjoy it. That's the trouble. Oh! That's why perhaps somebody shoved the Sharpies up his rear end. That's why he walks a bit funny, you know. But and that's why Ukrainian rent boys like burning his car. Strange, isn't it? It's, you know, because apparently they committed arse on him. Yes. So it was a court case on Keir Starmer's arse.
Dear Lord.
Yes. Yes. Right. I have a question for you tomorrow, Steve. That's Alice
Looking
Gorgeous.
forward to it, Alice.
What is the question? How
Yeah,
is
it
your
gives a sneak
pussycats?
preview. Okay,
Yes,
so I can look up the answer in my book.
that's it. That's it. And what else? Oh, the other thing. What about home security as well?
All right, yeah, throw that
All
in.
kinds of
Yeah.
things. I think we got well. And by the way, I downloaded all your uh, things that you sent me on Telegram,
Oh,
all
right,
ready
yeah.
to show on the show, and they're on the other computer.
Hey, no worries. I mean, that's stuff. I mean, that stuff might be interesting sometime if anyone's interested. Basically, I look into well, obviously my kind of background is military, and I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes in terms of the how the military and the matrix is all part of the divine order. Let's just put it at that, and also some important elements of how warfare actually works, some of the doctrinal methodology behind it, which could be useful to us as freedom fighters, because we are spiritual warriors. If we want to be effective spiritual warriors, well, we need to know the mechanisms and doctrines of war so we can become more combat effective.
And also, the best catapult for hobby, of course. Boing. As long as you don't forget and release the wrong ends. Sam's just said something here, was it? No matter the society, the majority of normies are not good people. Sorry, normies are dangerous. Well, stupidity is dangerous. That's what's his name? Oh, that German bloke. They are easily hypnotized, correct? They can and will sacrifice if the master tell them to do it. Yes, that's right. Yes. And now DJ B2 said, Aunt Sally, eyes are a good thing for a Sharpie. Well, yes. And what to do with a Sharpie? It's all kinds of. And also, I want to ask you, there's a bloke. It's sort of interesting, but you ever heard these people on YouTube that you sort of interesting, but not ex-army bloke. And he's talking about SLRs. Now, I used to be a photographer, and I thought SLR is a single lens reflex. I think, what's it about a single lens reflex for? But I guess it's a rifle, isn't it? An SLR? I don't know.
Self-loading rifle.
That's what it stands for. Because I got a bit. I shouldn't say I got a bit pissed off, got a bit bored with the bloke because he was in the army, I think in the 70s, and he's talking about SLRs. I think single lens reflex. So then he comes, hang on a minute, I got a picture of you. Oh, that's better, right? Here we are. But I still think it's funny, this idea of friendly fire. Sorry, didn't mean to shoot you up the arse. But what is it about rifles now? They look so plasticky, don't they? Compared with the ones in World War II, you know, when you look at
I guess, yeah.
But they've got sort of plastic on the side and that. But I mean, was there a rifle that everybody tried to avoid, which was absolute shit? I mean, there must have been.
The British Army SA-80. I don't know if anybody liked that rubbish.
Really?
Yeah.
But what was the best? Was it a single loading rifle or?
I mean, I'm old enough to have used that in my, in my start of my career. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, that was a powerful rifle, made a good walking stick, but it was heavy and it used iron sights. So again, it's not as accurate, I guess. Again, it depends on what you're doing and what the task is. But if it was for when the world improves and we are able to apply the self-defense principle.
You're just frozen there. You're all right, mate. I think Steve's just frozen. And sorry, mate, you froze.
Oh, so did I?
Got the world principle, and then we got. Oh, by the way, Alice School just thinks that SLR stands for silly little rulers.
I love it. Yeah, she's right on the money.
That's right. But DJ B2, he says the LSW was okay, less jamming. So there we are.
Yeah, I don't think that's in. I don't know what happened to that. To be honest, I think that got kind of disbanded.
But what gets me is in the films when people hide behind car doors. And I think it was Clarkson showed it. They got one of his rifles, and the bloody thing went straight through the car door and out the other side. Said you
Oh
wouldn't
God,
stand
no,
earthly taking cover behind a car door. It's poxy idea. Even if you stood the other side of the car, you wouldn't survive.
no, car will not stop a bullet at all. The engine block, well, the engine
Yeah.
block, you'd be all right behind that for a short time.
Yeah, there's some pretty. I tell you, I think a battlefield now has always been a terrible place, but with these drones, it's even
Oh,
worse.
it's horrendous. Yeah. I mean, there
And
must be thousands of people being killed in the Ukraine conflict through drones, and I must admit it's pretty harrowing because I don't know if you've seen the footage online of basically they're like people with the last dying moments where as the
horrendous.
drone flies. It's absolutely horrendous. You know,
And
they've probably
yeah,
got no idea this thing's coming.
and you'd probably be some short-sighted, spotty teenagers just that's looking at the right zone. I think that's oh, hang on. DJB2 said, I prefer the Bren. Laugh out loud.
Right.
No, World War II, isn't it? Bren gun.
I don't know if he's showing his age there or what. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I've definitely seen them. I don't know if I've ever fired one. I can't remember.
Lee Enfield, I think they must have been long gone when you joined the army. They were World War II, weren't they? But they sort of with a bolt. But the German army apparently had left-handed rifles. Seriously, they had
Right.
for left-handed people. My dad said that. Yeah, said these bloody straight. Yeah, they were left-handed people. So that's it, But no, I hang on. Matilda says I'm good with a spud gun. But actually, it's I've seen these kids with the old what do they call it, the shepherds, where they what they call
Frozen?
it, spinner. No, where you have rope, a lump of string, and you have a rock in it, and you swing it, slingshots, and it takes a lot of skill with a slingshot. It really does, because you got to, to aim it. And you see kids in Palestine using them. I mean, I don't like violence, but bloody Nora, they certainly know how to use them. But catapults, because there's talk, the government is talk. There is talk about them trying to ban crossbows.
Oh, they're talking about banning catapults as well. I mean, it's only a matter of time before pocket knives, pencil sharpeners, elastic bands will be banned. They'll be, they'll not stop. That's the thing with government.
You're right. Oh, by the way, Ricardo Blake TV said, I thought the SLR was a Mercedes-Benz hardtop. Well, they won't stop. That's the trouble. They'll just carry on and on and on and on because
it's because we keep begging them for more. Until we reach the point of, and this is a big thing, and human consciousness needs to develop into autonomy. Autonomy is being able to have self-directed behaviors. And if we base those behaviors on the moral principles of the self-defense and non-aggression principle, where we harmonize these two things, so the world that we experience becomes harmonized, as nature intended, well, guess what? Then, this freedom thing that we advocate for or want, that's going to happen. And also, if we keep advocating for more government, well, the government's just going to do its thing, which is mind control, violence, coercion, and the only thing it's good for is removing our rights in order to profit from it.
Well, there was actually talk, and I'm not kidding here, there's talk about them banning pointed end knives. Now, I use a pointed end knife in the kitchen with something frozen. I go, bosh! And it's the perfect way of dividing steaks and things if it's frozen. How are you going to get on without a pointed knife? And this is 100% true. I go to a stall in Waltham Cross Market,
Mm.
And there's Bill, who's in, I know, and we often have a conversation, put the wheels to right. And he told me that pen knives now are not allowed to be sharp when they sell them in case someone cuts themselves on it.
That's insane.
Seriously. And the other one, you know those bungee, not bungee,
Mm.
what are they called? Elasticated. You probably use them a lot in the army.
Yeah, bungee cords with the hooks on the end.
With hooks on the end.
Yeah.
Well, I bought some from him and they're bloody good. You know, these they're real business. I said, "You got any more of those?" He said, "No." He said, "I've run out of them." He said, "The ones now, but it's an EU rule. They're not allowed to be that strong in case they hurt someone." I said, "You are taking." I said, "You are taking it out." He said, "No." He said, "You can't get the strong ones anymore."
Yeah.
So you have to
We're in the nanny state. We've got to. This is another thing we need to. The government. In fact, there's a word for it. People who advocate for government or believe in the religious death cult called government are known as statists. Statists. So for the statists, then we live in a nanny state. We are in a nanny state. If we can't, buy a bungee cord or have a penknife that's sharp, then we're literally ridiculous, pathetic children who personally would deserve to be violated if we're that pathetic in our own lives that we actually think this is good for us or we want this.
Oh, it's horrendous what you can do and what you can't do and things like that. I mean, it's like these electric scooters. I think they're a bloody good idea. You get on it. Oh, no, not allowed to have them until they're licensed. Electric bike. You can only go up to 15 miles per hour. Why? You can cycle above that speed, but it can only assist you up to 15 miles an hour. Well, as long as you're doing no harm to anybody and you're a competent person, so bloody what? That's it. And DJ B2 says, "Oh, another left-hander. I'm left-handed. I'm left-handed. Nearly broke my jaw with a Lee Enfield No. 4 rifle." That's a problem. Do they have left-handed rifles in the army now? I suppose
it depends. There's some things that you can interchange various mechanisms to make it left-handed. But to be fair, I think all the left-handers I knew either struggled with a right-handed dominant rifle or weapon, or they learned to adapt.
This is what I've had to do.
Yeah.
Sorry, not for shooting a rifle. I don't know a rifle. I assure you that. I don't want the special branch around my house. No, I haven't got a rifle at all. But I've got a Sharpie pen. That might be deemed as dangerous. But anyway, tomorrow is going to be a fantastic show. So please join us 8 o'clock, same time. If you're in UK, if you're somewhere else, well, Christ knows what the time is going to be. But anyway, please join us, same time, same place, and we're going to be doing. I'm going to think up a time because there's a lot of this stuff about what's happening in the Middle East, how it's going to have a knock-on effect. There we'll be, I don't know, turning to cannibals and all the bullshit, loads of crap. And of course, you've got the amateur survivalists who have just learned it off of someone else and things like that. And what was it? I saw one the other day. Get yourself a DAB radio. Why? So you know what's going on. I'd rather not know what's going on.
Yeah.
I just want to protect myself, because if you hear on the radio they say go east, you go west. They say go west, go east. Do the opposite of what they say. Anyway, thank you very much, Steve, for joining us, and thanks to Monica as well.
Yeah, much respect.
Yeah, bloody good show tonight. Thank you, everybody in chat. Please subscribe, thumbs up. Consider subscribing, and whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh, and good night.